Major federal crackdown underway targeting the outlaw motorcycle gang known as the Bandidos.
10 Houston area members of the gang have been indicted for engaging in organized crime, which includes murder. Fox 26's Greg Rugen here live to tell us what's unfolding. Greg.
Rush and Caroline, violent, brazen, and vicious. All words used by federal law enforcement officers to describe the Bandidos, a gang which has waged war on rivals challenging their so-called monopoly in the greater Houston area. U.S. Attorney Nicholas Ganji says the 22-count felony racketeering charges announced today cap a 6-year investigation into crimes including arson, assault, robbery, and murder, all perpetrated by members of the Bandidos engaged in an ongoing turf war to maintain their dominance over a gang known as the Beast. Ganji says the ongoing violence was often indiscriminate, threatening the safety of innocent members of the public.
The Bandidos sought to exert a monopoly on motorcycle clubs and gangs in the Houston area, which could only operate with their blessing and with their permission. Perhaps the most striking aspect of the criminal conduct alleged in this case was how open and brazen it was. The alleged assaults and shootings took place in public spaces, in bars, in restaurants, motorcycle dealership, and on our public roads.
Over the past 5 years, Fox 26 has reported multiple acts of violence involving the Bandidos and their rivals, including ambush-style attacks and multiple fatalities. Today, FBI Special Agent in charge, Doug Williams, says the Bandidos were operating under a standing order from their national leadership to attack rival Beast members on sight.
Make no mistake, members of this Bandidos chapter are not the glamorized characters you've seen in TV shows and in the movies. These are vicious, violent men who regularly put innocent people in life-threatening situations to further a senseless turf war.
Story in Coleman County, the Hanceville Police Department is now being called a criminal enterprise after the chief of police and 4 officers were hauled off in handcuffs, arrested on drug-related charges and tampering with evidence. WAFF 48's Noah Cowell has more on why those officers are considered a threat to public safety.
This investigation started when Chris Willingham was found dead from an overdose while he was on the job at the 911 center in August. We now know that he died with a cocktail of drugs in his system, including fentanyl. As of today, we learned that some of those drugs came right from the Hanceville Police Evidence Room, which has now sparked a massive drug and corruption investigation.
There is a rampant culture of corruption in the Hanceville Police Department, which has recently operated as more of a criminal enterprise than a law enforcement agency.
The Hanceville police chief, 4 of his officers, and an officer's wife are all facing a variety of crimes from felonies to misdemeanors. Eric Kelso is accused of giving Adderall, hydrocodone, and anabolic steroids to 2 fellow officers, Cody Kelso and Jason Wilbanks. Eric and his wife Donna are both charged with drug distribution and conspiracy. Police Chief Jason Marlin is accused of knowing about at least some of these issues and failing to report them.
These officers find themselves on the opposite end of the laws they were sworn to uphold.
In today's news conference, District Attorney Champ Crocker highlighted the lack of security in the evidence room, releasing photos of a massive hole carved out to the room where people had unauthorized access to evidence like drugs. A picture even shows a man using a broomstick to jimmy the door to get inside.
This evidence room was routinely accessed by individuals who were not authorized to do so, going in and out using this stick through the hole in the wall.
Evidence for several cases is now legally tainted and can't be used in trials. The Coleman County Grand Jury recommended the city shut down its police department entirely. If that happens, the Coleman County Sheriff Matt Gentry says his department is ready to step in to help.
We would take over all responsibilities from patrol in that area, investigation in that area, dispatch, and or the jail. Of course, you know, we have the jail here where we run over 400 inmates a day.
The 6 who were charged are currently out on bond. Now, the district attorney said that he won't go into any specifics on what caused Willingham's death, but they do attribute much of it to the lack of security in that.
Developments in Hanceville. A federal lawsuit claiming corruption from 2022 is now coming to light. This comes after Coleman County officials announced the arrests and indictments of 5 Hanceville police officers, including the department's chief. Concerning things discovered in the investigation, alleged the department's evidence room was not secure and accessed by unauthorized personnel. Lowell Adam Hatter, a former employee of the city of Hanceville, filed a lawsuit in August of 2024 against the city, alleging he was forced to resign and that evidence protocol was ignored. Hatter's attorneys declined to comment on the suit at the time. As ABC 3340's I-Team's Valerie Bell discovered, Hatter and 2 other officers not indicted by the grand jury are named in a federal suit filed from 2022.
It's been like living in pure evil, to be honest. Just pure evil. When you tell somebody of authority you need help and they don't give you help, I don't know how you go ask after that.
Joshua Phillips sits at the table with his attorney, Roderick Van Daniel, sharing his story with us. A federal lawsuit filed in 2022 names the city of Hanceville, along with officers Kyle Duncan, Josh Howell, and Lowell Adam Hatter, who, according to court documents, were all serving at the time of the incident. The lawsuit alleges an altercation occurred on the morning of September 8, 2020. It describes an altercation with Howell, who was not in uniform, at a gas station, in which he felt threatened and went to the police department to report it. The complaint claims Phillips was told by officers Duncan and Howell that he did not have a valid complaint and that he needed to leave or he would be arrested.
You know, I prayed before I went in there, and it felt good to be able to have a place that you could go to, safety, if you needed it. There's no safety when you need it.
The lawsuit also accuses Hatter of physically assaulting Phillips after spending 14 hours in jail.
From choking him, from dragging him from the booking room to the hallway to the jail cell, for spitting in his face.
Footage from inside the facility and body cameras were leaked on YouTube by an unknown source, but according to attorney Roderick Van Daniel, was not released by the city or department.
He abused the law that day and continued to abuse the law when he lost the video footage that showed what he did that day. They made my client Joshua feel like he was a criminal. They gave him charges for wanting to make a complaint, a valid complaint, against another police officer.
The evidence that you say in this case is lost, which would be the video footage, how paramount is that to your case?
It's very paramount. Now, since we don't have the video footage, it's Joshua Phillips' word against Officer Hatter's words.
Phillips and his attorney continue to fight this battle in court.
Police officers are not above the law.
That's what I need. I need justice.
I stopped into City Hall to speak with Mayor Jimmy Sawyer about this case and Hatter's lawsuit, but he referred me to attorney Terry Sides. I have called and left a message and am waiting for a response. In Hanceville, Valerie Bell, ABC 3340 News.
And the Coleman County Sheriff's Office is patrolling the city during a temporary takeover. The Sheriff's Office will continue to provide all law enforcement services until the city decides on a permanent resolution there.
And welcome. And so that I hope that you were listening closely and watching closely to those particular news reports, because I think you may have noticed some similarities to some things that we talk about on a regular basis here on this channel. And I know that all of you talk about on a regular basis in your lives. And wow, the loss of video that is extremely important. The refusal to properly investigate pertinent leads. The committing of a plethora of offenses behind the scenes with reckless disregard for public safety and the truth, and the hiding and destroying of evidence. I mean, just you cannot make this up. And so I'd like to welcome you tonight to the DELPHI, the demand for a RICO. And this is our wonderful Monday night show. Tonight is February 24th of 2025 when we are recording this. And mark my words, at some point in the future, Lafayette, Indiana will end up running DELPHI, Indiana, because DELPHI is going to get an enema. Arson, murders, dead cops, suicides. You cannot make this up. But tonight we're going to be doing somewhat of a deep dive. And before we get started, I would just love to welcome in all of my wonderful viewers who have made it into the chat room. And if you have not yet and are lurking, please go ahead and join the live chat. If you happen to be on the replay, please do me the honor of leaving some comments down below as you watch this show, because I'd love your input. And I think giving the community a voice, or giving a voice to the community, is a major part of what I do here. Although I tend to be a talking head on this channel alone, don't disregard the fact that my actual intention here is to give you a platform in the community via the live chat and the comment sections to give you a voice. And so I love your comments. I think you need to make your voices heard. And that's part of what we're going to be discussing tonight. You need to make your voices heard. Okay. And the attempt at this show tonight is to help allow you to have your voices heard, because I think that Mr. Todd Rokita, Mr. Kash Patel, and a whole bunch of individuals on up the chain of command need to be listening to the community's voices, because I think it's pretty obvious here, and that's what we're going to be getting into, that we have the case for a RICO in the DELPHI murders debacle. And so we'll be getting into that. But let me say hello to my wonderful viewers first, and we'll be going into it. So welcome to you. First of all, let me just begin by saying thanks to Amy, my main mod. She's posting all the support pathway links, and they are there pinned at the top of the chat, and they're also elsewhere on the channel. Please understand that we love if you'd support the channel, and the pathways are all there for you. So thank you to Amy, and thank you to Judith Galloway, Court of Public Opinion, Mino Dino, Heavy Metal Rehab, Heather Brown, Say What, Jay Lynn, 5 Green Acres, Court of Public Opinion, Plain Iron, Birdie 81, Fur Baby Daddy, Grim Reaper, Lisa. Who else we have in here? We got Sweet Dude Shibby and Dawn Steele. Okay. Charisma 6174. Aaron M. Town. Elizabeth Jones from Scotland. Welcome in. Let's see. I don't want to miss anyone, but I like to expedite this. What's up? Malibu is here. Welcome in, Malibu. And Shotgun Susie. All right, Bonnie. Digital. Okay. David Rogers. Oleg Cat. Big JD 420. Maria Alma. The Bird. All right, Ninja Warrior Assassin. TJ Bits. Gretchen Allen. Swade Smith. Sunflower Soul. Pert Innit. Don McKenzie. Right. Stephanie. Shy Low. Ben Aaron. Okay, and Christina. Right, Ricardo 2. Kay is here. All right. Cromley Luxury Corporation, who I call Mr. Cromley. All right, let's see. We got, I think that's about it. Kate Yu is here. Jen is here. Okay. Shelly Klein is here. Mar R. Nancy. All right. Let's see who else we got in here. I think we got just about got it. We got 4 pit bulls across America. Okay. Basically a detective. Steve Z. Stubbs. Okay. Sunflower. And hey, everyone else who happens to be in here, I thank you for being here. Okay, we'll go on ahead and get into it. Wow. So there's so much, just so much to get into. Hope you made yourself comfortable. You got some nice beverages and snacks, whatever you need, because there's a lot to get into tonight, but we'll be working at it. And so what we're going to start off with is we're going to do a deeper dive into the 2 that I opened up with, okay? So what we opened up with were the Banditos, Houston, RICO, look at it, okay? We're going to look at that. And then we're going to look at the Huntsville, soon-to-be RICO investigation. We're going to be looking into that. And so the first thing we're going to do, and that Huntsville is in Coleman County, but let's go ahead and first, let's go on back to the Banditos, because we know that as we've been discussing Delphi for these several years now, we've repeatedly brought into this particular conversation the motorcycle clubs as a particular festering, should I say, uh, plague, a contingent that plagues the Midwest. And it appears when it comes to Delphi that there are motorcycle club affiliations or connections that are tied directly to the crime. Okay, understand what I'm saying. There's reason to believe that Delphi is connected to several other crimes. Okay, do you understand what I'm saying? Okay, there's reason to believe that Delphi is a multi perpetrator crime connected to several other multi perpetrator crimes, all of which seem to be connected directly to various motorcycle clubs, which shall go unnamed at this moment. But we know that we've talked about the Eagles in Peru as a particularly concerning location. We know we've talked about the large showing of motorcyclists after the murders of these two girls in Delphi as a particular menacing exhibition. And we've discussed at length the outlaw affiliated connections with some of these individuals versus the Hells Angels affiliated connections with some of these individuals. And so it appears that between perpetrators and victims, there may be some sort of outlaws affiliation versus Hells Angels affiliation war. Okay. And we know that when we're looking at these banditos, we're also discussing similar thing. Okay. A similar thing, which is outlaw affiliation. And we've got problems. Okay, we've got problems, and I honestly believe when you have a social structure or an entrenched infestation or a plague of connections on that go on into the social structure and that go on down into the motorcycle clubs, that there is a problem. Okay, there is a problem here, and it appears that in Indiana and in Delphi, that may be what we are dealing with, is that this entrenched power structure is protecting the actual nature of the crime. Okay, and with that being said, you got my opinion. Okay, so anyhow, for some perspective, we're going to be looking at several federal actions that are current and recent. Several RICO cases that are being brought that are current and recent. And we're going to do it for some compare and contrast to Delphi and the associated or affiliated crime. So let's go ahead and move on into it. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a quick look at the press conference regarding the Houston area banditos federal crackdown. Okay, so I'll stick here with you and we'll watch it together. But I think you'll find this interesting. Remember, if we're discussing a contingent of individuals who are all committing crimes as a collective, terrorizing the community, various levels of individuals are becoming dead because of it, whether it's children, mothers, fathers, law enforcement, rivals. We've got a problem, okay? So I'd like you to pay attention at the things we're going to be looking at tonight, so that once we're past the review of the federal actions, we can move on into how does that compare with what we believe is going on in Indiana, okay? So
good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming. My name is Nicholas Ganji, and I'm the United States Attorney for the Southern District of Texas. February 11th of this year, federal grand jury sitting here in Houston returned a 22-count superseding indictment against 14 members and associates of the Bandidos outlaw motorcycle gang. The majority of those defendants are members of the Welcome to Hell chapter located here in Katy, Texas. This superseding indictment alleges that the charged defendants engaged in a course of criminal conduct in connection with and for the benefit of the Bandidos organization. These crimes include racketeering, assault, robbery, arson, and murder. If convicted, these defendants face a penalty.
Let me just highlight that again. He said racketeering, assault, arson, drug dealing, and murder. Doesn't that sound familiar? All of you in the chat, raise your hand if it sounds familiar.
Of up to 20 years, of up to life imprisonment, and some up to 20 years. Robbery, arson, and murder.
Sorry, I just wanted to back it up so you can hear it again.
Robbery, arson, and murder. Engaged in a course of criminal conduct in connection with and for the benefit of the Bandidos organization. These crimes include racketeering, assault, robbery, arson, and murder. If convicted, these defendants face a penalty of up to 20 years, of up to life imprisonment, and some up to 20 years. Now, the Bandidos are a particularly violent organization, even by outlaw motorcycle gang standards, and they're also especially large. Although the Bandidos began in Texas, they have spread worldwide, with chapters not only throughout Texas, but around the world, in Europe, in Asia, and starting now in Mexico. So what this indictment alleges is the Bandidos engage in a series of violent attacks against other bikers in the Houston area, ranging from barroom assaults to outright murder, all with the purpose of driving out any rival biker gangs out of the Houston area, which the Bandidos saw as their turf. In other words, the Bandidos sought to exert a monopoly on motorcycle clubs and gangs in the Houston area, which could only operate with their blessing and with their permission. This superseding indictment alleges that this monopoly was enforced with violence on the part of the Bandidos organization. This alleged conduct stretched all over the Houston area, from the Woodlands all the way down to Pasadena and out to Katy. But perhaps the most striking aspect of the criminal conduct alleged in this case was how open and brazen it was. The alleged assaults and shootings took place in public spaces, in bars, in restaurants, motorcycle dealership, and on our public roads. In other words, innocent people, innocent motorists could have been injured or killed by the actions alleged in this indictment. So what we have done today is targeted some of the most dangerous people in that organization through RICO charges. RICO, Racketeering, Influenced, and Corrupt Organizations Act, provides a powerful criminal penalty for people that engage in a pattern of racketeering activity or members and associates of an enterprise that affects interstate commerce. And that is what is precisely alleged in the indictment. Public safety is and will always be job one for the Southern District of Texas. You can be rest assured that we will do whatever it takes to ensure that violent criminal organizations, either here in the Houston area or in South Texas, are swiftly brought to justice. Today's superseding indictment is the product of tremendous prosecutorial collaboration between our office and the Violent Crime and Racketeering section of the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. It is also the product of the incredible teamwork of our federal, state, and local law enforcement partners. With that, I will turn it over to Special Agent in Charge, Douglas Williams of Houston FBI.
Good afternoon. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Before I'd like to start my comments, I'd like to thank all of my partners who stand with me here today, shoulder to shoulder, in this truly team effort to combat the Bandidos. And again, my name is Doug Williams. I'm Special Agent in Charge of FBI Houston. This morning's arrest of 10 members from the Bandidos outlaw motorcycle gang has been more than 6 years in the making. Yep, you heard that right. This morning's take.
Okay, let me stop it, because even he had to say, this is the Fed. Okay, even he had to say, yep, you heard that right. 6 years in the making. 6 years in the making. And I know that I am an eternal optimist. Okay, I have often repeated that it could very well be that we have a federal sting in progress. And I stick by that. I stick by that. Um, 6 years in the making for this one, and it's only 15 banditos. Okay. What do you think it would take for the 35 in Indiana? Okay. So, anyhow, he said 6 years in the making, 6 year sting operation here. So let's let it continue, and I'll stop talking.
Down is the result of more than 6 years of steadfast work, dedication, and collaboration between law enforcement partners standing with me here today. Our efforts have paid dividends in the form of numerous federal murder and racketeering charges against the banditos. I'd especially like to thank our partners at the Texas Board of Criminal Justice Office of Inspector General for their efforts in bringing this case to the federal court system. Alongside our federal, state, and local partners, we've dealt a significant blow to an extremely violent chapter of the Banditos outlaw motorcycle gang operating here in our region. Over the past 6 years, a vicious turf war between the Banditos and the Beast outlaw motorcycle gangs has threatened Houstonians in a very public way. As part of the conflict, the Banditos' national leadership allegedly put out a smash on-site order against the Beast members. That order essentially gave Banditos a green light to violently assault and even kill Beast members on site. As a result of over half a decade, our team of agents and task force officers has responded to highway shootouts that endangered innocent drivers, aggravated assaults in family restaurants that terrified patrons, and calculated murders that rocked the safety and well-being of our community. Make no mistake, members of this Banditos chapter are not the glamorized characters you've seen in TV shows and in the movies. These are vicious, violent men who regularly put innocent people in life-threatening situations to further a senseless turf war. These men pride themselves on being part of a violent, reactionary force dedicated to the destruction and slaughter of a rival gang. In short, they are exactly the type of alleged criminals our team of agents and task force officers are trained to investigate and take down. In response to the serious public threat posed by the Banditos, FBI Houston worked closely with the Texas Board of Criminal Justice, Office of Inspector General, task force officers, other law enforcement partners, and the federal prosecutors to secure RICO indictments against the Banditos. And to put that into perspective of how serious we view this group, these RICO indictments are the first RICO indictments secured in the Southern District of Texas in over 12 years.
Put the brakes on. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? These are the first RICO indictments in the Southern District of Texas in over 12 years. Thank you.
Outlaw motorcycle gangs, like the Banditos, often hide behind the facade of a club, but their true goal is to spread violence and intimidation, regardless of who they hurt with their crimes. Today's arrests send a stark message to other outlaw motorcycle gangs in our area. You can't outsmart us. You can't outrun us. And you're certainly not untouchable. This operation wasn't just about bringing alleged criminals to justice. It's about protecting people, families, and children who live and work in the Texas communities our law enforcement agencies standing behind me serve. Every arrest today means there's one less motorcycle outlaw on the streets terrorizing our neighborhoods with violence. We're proud of what we achieved today. but there's more work to be done. The FBI and our partners will continue to protect Texans and our community, and we will do whatever it takes to dismantle violent gangs that threaten our neighborhoods. I'd like to thank you for your time here today. I'd like to thank all of my partners who stand behind me, and I'll now turn the podium over to Regional Director Gerald Brown with the Texas Department of Public Safety.
Good morning. Thank you all for coming here. Media, thank you for what you do for us. There's not a lot that I could add to what these gentlemen already said, but I will take the opportunity to thank everyone here at the podium. U.S. Attorney, welcome to Houston. Thank you for all you're doing with this case. Hey, look, there's no greater responsibility for law enforcement than that of taking care of its citizens, protecting its citizens. And this case that we had today, which was a joint collaborative effort with all the folks you see up here, all the young men and women that are out there on the streets working every day to protect the state of Texas, the citizens of the state of Texas. The folks that were arrested today is a culmination of a long-term investigation with all these agencies that you see here. Today, we took some violent folks off the street. These are some of the most violent members of this outlaw motorcycle gang that we took off the streets today in an effort to make Texas safer. So thank you to everyone that's a part of this investigation. This was a true investigation, true collaborative investigation with the state, local, and federal agencies. I'd like to take 1 second to thank those folks from my agency, those special agents, the troopers, the aircraft folks, the analysts, everyone that was involved, put in a lot of effort to work on this case. And finally, before I sit down, DPS is committed to making Texas safer. That's our commitment. That's our commitment to the citizens of the state that we live in. Not only are we committed to making Texas safer, we're also committed to our law enforcement partners and our public partners. So thank you very much for your time today.
Good afternoon. I'm Lieutenant Scott Spencer with the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office, and it's an honor to be here today. Sheriff Wesley Doolittle regrets that he couldn't be here, but he asked me to share his appreciation for the incredible work that has gone into this case. This investigation took years of hard work and dedication from countless law enforcement professionals at every level, as you can see they're represented here today. Today's indictments are proof of their commitment. This case is a powerful reminder of why strong partnerships between federal, state, and local agencies matter. When we work together with a shared goal of public safety and keeping our communities safe, there is nothing that we can't accomplish. On behalf of Sheriff Doolittle and the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office, I want to thank our law enforcement partners for their relentless dedication and determination in this case. We remain committed to holding criminals accountable, ensuring justice is served, and making our communities a safer place. Back over to the U.S. Attorney.
Thank you all. We'll now turn it over for questions if you have any.
Okay, so I'll leave that for you if you want to go and watch the Q&A portion of that. I'll leave that for you to go find on your own. It's there, and that was several days ago. So that's good. Okay, that's really good. It's out there. Anyhow, so this particular RICO or these indictments are headed toward the criminal element on the street, the outlaw criminal element. Do you understand what I'm saying? The criminal underworld that are the true renegades on the street, not behind the badge. Okay. Now, the interesting thing is that within hours, okay, within 48 hours or so of this, there's this announcement that we're going to look at now, which covers the flip side of the coin, which is another RICO that's coming down, but this time it's coming down to those criminals behind the badge. And you're going to find this interesting because what's going on in Hanceville appears to be very interesting. So you got corrupt cops. Okay, so let's put it in a perspective before we listen so you know what to listen for. So the gist of it is that you've got a similar thing to Carroll County, which is that you've got corrupt cops who are sort of operating in their own fiefdoms here, and they have federal charges now going back to 2022, and then now what it turns out is their dispatcher died on their watch because he was given bad fentanyl laced dope out of the evidence room. So so there's so many layers to that, because not only is it the destruction of evidence, but now it's manslaughter murder, and it's a conspiracy because everyone's covering each other's ass. So what you're about to hear, you're going to hear some of the details of this one in over in Hanceville. But like I said, the interesting thing is it's the flip side. So in Houston, they're looking at the criminal biker element, and then here now we're looking at the Attorney General's looking here at the criminal law enforcement element.
Good afternoon. I'm District Attorney Champ Crocker, joined here by Sheriff Matt Gentry. This is a sad day for law enforcement, but at the same time, it is a good day for the rule of law. The grand jury of Coleman County has recently returned multiple felony and misdemeanor indictments on 5 Hanceville police officers and 1 spouse of an officer. As DA, I would like to thank several agencies and individuals for their assistance in this investigation. The Alabama State Bureau of Investigation, Special Agent Jamie King, who led this investigation. Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall and his staff. The Attorney General's office reviewed these charges before we took them to the grand jury, and General Marshall and I have remained in close contact throughout this process. The Alabama Ethics Commission and Special Agent Chris McKay, Coleman County Sheriff Matt Gentry and his staff for their assistance, as well as the Coleman Police Department, who provided assistance, and the Wallace State Police Force, who responded in this case. I'm going to go through the charges and the individuals at this time, and we're going to have something on the screen. The Cody Allen Kelso, 2 counts of computer tampering, solicitation to commit a controlled substance crime, use of office for personal gain, and tampering with physical evidence. Jason Scott Wilbanks, 2 counts of computer tampering, 2 counts use of office for personal gain, 2 counts solicitation to commit a controlled substance crime, and tampering with physical evidence. Jason Shane Marlin, 2 counts of failure to report an ethics crime and tampering with physical evidence. William Andrew Shelnut, tampering with physical evidence, 1 count.
Before I let him go too far, remember, I don't know if you caught that, but this is a shout out to DELPHI. Okay, this is a shout out to DELPHI. Pay attention. One of these charges on the previous guy, I'll play it back, is an ethics violation or a felony charge for failure to report the ethics violations. Ooh, isn't that rich? Oh, listen up, DELPHI. Listen up.
William Andrew Shelnut, tampering with physical. 2 counts solicitation to commit a controlled substance crime and tampering with physical evidence. Jason Shane Marlin, 2 counts of failure to report an ethics crime and tampering with physical evidence. William Andrew Shelnut, tampering with physical evidence, 1 count. Eric Michael Kelso, 4 counts unlawful distribution of a controlled substance, 2 counts conspiracy to unlawfully distribute a controlled substance. His spouse, Donna Reed Kelso, 2 counts unlawful distribution of a controlled substance, 2 counts conspiracy to unlawfully distribute a controlled substance.
And let's put this one into perspective. This is not one of the cops who's working in the department. No, no. This is a spouse, which means you don't have to be one of the cops. You don't have to be one of the cops here. You could be the spouse. You might be the sibling. You might be the daughter. You might be the cousin. You motherfuckers better listen.
All charges are felonies, with the exception of tampering with physical evidence, which is a Class A misdemeanor. The grand jury, and I'm going to speak about the grand jury and their work, but first I want to tell you the grand jury's findings and recommendations, which were unanimous and made public by the grand jury. I'm going to read these 9 points for you. Number 1, that any current or former officer of Hanceville Police Department indicted be suspended from law enforcement by the Alabama Peace Officers Standards and Training Commission. Number 2, that the Hanceville Police Department be immediately abolished. Number 3, that another law enforcement agency, whether local or state, be tasked with protecting the citizens of Hanceville. Number 4, based upon the investigation by the State Bureau of Investigation, we, the grand jury, find that the Hanceville Police Department is a particular and ongoing threat to public safety. Number 5, that there is a rampant culture of corruption in the Hanceville Police Department, which has recently operated as more of a criminal enterprise than a law enforcement agency. Number 6,
and that's the important part there. I hope you caught that too. Criminal enterprise. Those words have meaning. This police department was operating more so as a criminal enterprise than a law enforcement agency. Oh, that's rich, and I can't wait for DELPHI.
which has recently operated as more of a criminal enterprise than a law enforcement agency. Number 6, that the Hanceville Police Department has abused public trust by its failure of oversight, lack of leadership, and negligent training and hiring. Number 7, that the Hanceville Police Department has failed to account for, preserve, and maintain evidence.
Excuse me, hold on. I got to pull it down for this. Excuse me. Are you sensing a pattern here with these points that he's laying out? We'll put it back and I'll back it up 10 seconds. Failure to properly handle and not destroy evidence. Oh boy. If there's ever a case for a RICO in Indiana, we got it here with DELPHI. Do you understand what I'm saying? And look, I'm not fucking around. This is a demand for a RICO. This is not a request.
4, preserve and maintain evidence, and in enterprise than a law enforcement agency. Number 6, that the Hanceville Police Department has abused public trust by its failure of oversight, lack of leadership, and negligent training and hiring. Number 7, that the Hanceville Police Department has failed to account for, preserve, and maintain evidence, and in doing so has failed crime victims and the public at large. This evidence is unusable. Number 8, this grand jury toured the Hanceville jail on February 12, 2025. We, the grand jury, have zero confidence in the Hanceville Police Department's ability to maintain a jail or to meet basic health and safety needs of jail personnel or inmates.
Okay, did you hear that one? Okay, let me interject there too. Hear that one. The grand jury went and toured the jail facility, and after doing so, says, we don't have confidence that you know how to maintain a facility or the safety of the inmates or the employees. Okay, this is big. This is big, and the parallels with Delphi are astounding.
Number 9, that the death of former Huntsville dispatcher Chris Willingham is the direct result of Huntsville Police Department's negligence, lack of procedure, general incompetence, and disregard for human life. Signed by the foreman, February 14th, 2025. I want to thank this grand jury. Only the grand jury knows all of the facts in this case. The grand jury was 18 people from all walks of life and different backgrounds from all over Coleman County. They took an oath to diligently inquire indictable offenses without malice or fear and to the best of their ability. Before we started, the grand jury and I said a prayer together, and we asked that the Lord's wisdom and discernment guide every part of this process. They reviewed the evidence for days, and they weren't afraid to ask tough questions. This grand jury upheld their oaths on behalf of the citizens of Coleman County, and they were unanimous in their recommendations, and they were unanimous in all the indictments that I've listed. I want to talk about the evidence room, and we're going to have another slide for you. One of the most concerning things that we discovered in this process was that Huntsville Police Department's evidence room was not secure. Criminal evidence must be secured in order to have that evidence for prosecution and to ensure due process. This evidence room was anything but secure. This photo here is the outside wall to the evidence room, and you will see this hole in the evidence room. This picture was taken on August 23rd, 2024. You also notice a broomstick in the corner that is green with a white handle on it. And in the next couple slides, you will see what that broomstick was used for in this hole. And I'm not going to name the individual pictured here. This is someone who works there. And you can see this individual has this stick in his hand and is pushing it in the door, in the hole to jimmy open the door. And the grand jury watched a lot of videos. This is from security camera footage showing this evidence room was routinely accessed by individuals who were not authorized to do so, going in and out using this stick through the hole in the wall. And we have one more photo of that. This is from the same transaction here where this individual who had the stick is actually sticking his head and upper body into the hole, attempting to jimmy open the door, which was a quite common occurrence. That's our final slide for that. I want to say this for the citizens of Huntsville. The citizens of Huntsville deserve equal protection under the law. They deserve to have a safe community just like everyone else in this county. I have been in touch with Huntsville officials this week. Mayor Sawyer and the council have pledged their full cooperation throughout this process. This morning, Huntsville Municipal Judge Heath Maherg entered an order calling for an audit of the evidence room, and he is joining me.
Oh, I just love that one too. Audit the evidence room. Yeah, audit the evidence. Thank you, Burr.
In asking state officials to conduct that audit. With these indictments, these officers find themselves on the opposite end of the laws they were sworn to uphold. Wearing a badge is a privilege and an honor, and that most law enforcement officers take seriously. A badge is not a license to corrupt the administration of justice. And when law enforcement officers abuse their power, they do damage to the public's trust in law enforcement. Our law enforcement officers in this county put their lives on the line every day to protect the citizens. And those officers who would break the law diminish the sacrifices of the overwhelming majority of officers who protect and serve. And when law enforcement officers do not meet the standard that they should, they will be held accountable. Now, we will allow some time for questions. I'm not going to discuss the facts of these cases. I will answer any general questions to the extent possible, but first I will defer to Sheriff Gentry.
Thank you, DA. You know, there's nothing more important to us in law enforcement than good, honest law enforcement. When we have those that do wrong, it hurts us all. The reason I'm standing here today with the district attorney because I believe in doing what's right. But I also want to stand up for the law enforcement men and women of the sheriff's office, men and women of the police department here in Coleman, troopers, and law enforcement across the state of Alabama for the 99% that do what is right. We always hear there's the 1%. Well, today you're seeing the 1%. But we always have to stand up for what's right. And those men and women that go out every day to make a sacrifice that we're protected. The other issue I want to address is once I knew the grand jury's findings and the report, myself and members of the command staff started meeting to assure the citizens of Hanceville one thing: safety. And I want to speak to those citizens. I know right now that you're going through a range of emotions from anger, hurt, all of the things that we feel when our trust has been betrayed, fear. But I can assure you, members of the sheriff's office here in Coleman County, we have already met. I have spoken to members of Hanceville, the mayor and the council. We will do what is necessary to protect our citizens in Hanceville, because they're not just citizens of Hanceville, they're citizens of Coleman County. And as sheriff, we protect all citizens of Coleman County. That's what I've been doing for the last 25 and a half years, and that's what I'll continue to do. Days like this come and go, but good law enforcement will stand the test of time. And I'm pleased to be standing here with the district attorney and all of those that do what is right. So thank you for being here, and thank you for getting out the truth.
So the grand jury found that the Hanceville Police Department is a particular and ongoing threat to public safety. Can you expand on what that threat is? Can you tell us how it's an ongoing threat to public safety?
I believe that finding was based on the charges themselves. Based on their observations of the conduct that had been going on. The charges that go to that finding speak for them.
Yeah, you see what I mean? Because this is where it's reaching back to not just this crime and this death, but it's going back into the ongoing shady behavior of this department for years prior. And when it comes to Delphi, I think we're going to see the same thing. So let me let it keep playing.
Themselves.
Do you expect any other charges to come with this?
For these defendants, I do not expect any other charges unless there is new evidence. As for anyone else, I can't say at this time.
It says the police department should be abolished. Is that happening?
You would have to ask the city of Hanceville about that. I have not heard of what their plans are in that respect.
So these recommendations are made to the city of Hanceville, and then they take action on them?
The recommendations have been made to the public at large, and then whatever action is taken will be up to the mayor and the council.
And what's going to happen with these cases that the evidence has been tampered with?
Some of those cases are in the municipal court of Huntsville. Some of those cases, if they're felonies, are cases that we handle in state court. We are going to begin a review process of all those cases. We will look at those on a case-by-case basis. I am not optimistic about the ability to prosecute cases with tampered evidence.
Do you know how many cases there are?
We are working on that.
Okay, I'm going to leave that just like the other one because it's only halfway through. I'll leave that for you if you're interested in that. That's still out there as well. And you can go and watch the Q&A session yourself where more information is revealed, but it's very good, okay? It's very good. Both of these are very good. They're very good developments. They're very good signals that federal government is looking at what's going on. And I would like to say this as well. This Huntsville is a perfect analogy to Delphi. I hope that you guys understand that. They're almost identical in population, okay, about 3,000. So with this Huntsville conundrum here, you're dealing with a department and a bunch of crimes and missing evidence and everything you just heard. This is all going down in a tiny little Delphi-like town, okay? So it's a good analogy, and if you go and look into it yourself, you'll understand what I'm meaning. And so the thing is, and I've said this so many times, that this is a thing that plagues the nation, okay? Let's be honest here. This sort of thing plagues the nation, and it really has a grip on law enforcement and even the legal structure. You know, it goes into the prosecutors, into the mayor's offices, into the governorships. This is a problem nationwide, and if you don't understand it, if you don't believe it, well, you're living in naive land, and I hope that you're okay with the delusions, but perhaps the rude awakening will eventually settle upon you that this is a problem. It infests our society, and every time you see one of these triggered, it's a good thing. Okay, so anyhow, before we get too far ahead, okay, I would like to do some more exhibiting of the recent RICO actions that the federal government is working on, because I don't think you might not realize yet what else is going down, because this is not at all. This is just the tip of the iceberg, and this is just in the past week. Okay. So what I'd like to do, we'll take a look at some others that are also going on in the past week or two. Okay, so so that you can have a little context here. Okay, so this one says, and these are all from the Department of Justice website, the DOJ website here. Okay, this says February 24th. Okay, this was today. 14 members of extensive alien smuggling organization charged and 8 arrested for smuggling hundreds of illegal aliens into the United States. 14 alleged members of a prophilic alien smuggling organization were charged for their roles smuggling aliens from South and Central America into the U.S. via the southern border. A grand jury in Las Cruces, New Mexico, returned an indictment on February 19th against 14 individuals for conspiracy to transport, harbor, and bring illegal aliens into the U.S. This is a RICO case here. 8 of these charged were arrested on February 20th and 21st. Today's indictment alleges that the defendants engaged in a sophisticated conspiracy to smuggle aliens into and throughout the United States at great danger to the aliens, resulting in the death of one person. It's human trafficking. The Justice Department worked with our partners at Department of Homeland Security to dismantle an alien smuggling organization based in Mexico that has allegedly smuggled hundreds of illegals, including unaccompanied children, through New Mexico and South Texas. Okay, we are committed to eliminating transnational alien smuggling organizations that exploit migrants purely for profit and undermine national security. According to the indictment unsealed today, the defendants participated in a conspiracy to illegally bring in undocumented aliens from Mexico into the U.S. via the southern border. The indictment alleges that the defendants were also responsible for transporting them within the United States and concealing them in stash houses along the way. During some of the smuggling events, the defendants allegedly evaded law enforcement by traveling at high rates of speed on the road and instructing the migrants how to flee across the border, how to flee the border patrol and evade checkpoints. Additionally, the indictment alleges that one undocumented alien died from heat exposure during a smuggling event and was abandoned in the desert. Human smuggling or trafficking organizations threaten our national security and exploit vulnerable individuals for profit, putting lives at risk and undermining public safety. Okay. The U.S. Attorney's Office in the District of New Mexico is continuing to work with federal, state, and local partners to dismantle this transnational human smuggling organization and organizations and hold their leaders accountable, seize illicit proceeds, and put these to a stop. Okay. We are appreciative of our brave law enforcement partners for their continued vigilance in investigating and apprehending members of transnational criminal organizations who conspire to undermine our nation's immigration laws for profit. With a callous and reckless disregard for the sanctity of life. Okay? As this case sadly demonstrates, human smuggling is a crime that takes lives and puts the public at risk. Okay? Anyway, I'll skip ahead with all the names because we don't need to go through that. But each defendant that was one of these 14 is charged with conspiracy to bring, transport, and harbor illegal aliens into the United States. If convicted, they each face a maximum penalty of 10 years. A federal district judge, court judge, will determine any sentence after considering the sentencing guideline and other factors. Okay. Now, next one, 14 members and associates of violent transnational motorcycle gang indicted on RICO and murder charges. This is from February 19th, just 5 days ago. And this has to do with the banditos, but we'll read through it anyway. Okay, this is the press release here. An indictment unsealed today in the Southern District of Texas charged 14 members and associates of the Banditos Outlaws motorcycle gang for their alleged roles in a criminal enterprise engaged in murder, robbery, arson, narcotics distribution, and witness intimidation. Do you hear that, Troll Farm? Do you hear that, Troll Farm? Witness intimidation. The indictment accuses defendants of various crimes, including engaging in a conspiracy to commit racketeering, RICO activity, committing violent crimes in furtherance of the gang, such as murder, attempted murder, and assault. Okay. The indictment alleges that the Banditos, a self-identified outlaw motorcycle organization with membership of approximately 1,500 to 2,000 in the U.S., an additional 1,000 to 1,500 internationally, including Mexico. Today's indictment is an important step in eliminating the Banditos outlaw motorcycle gang, said Antoinette T. Bacon. The Banditos declare war on rivals and wage war on the streets. Criminal behavior like this has no place in America, and the DOJ is fully committed to bringing peace to our communities. Ensuring public safety in the Southern District of Texas is a paramount concern. Okay. The indictment here not only alleges shocking crimes of violence, but also alleges these offenses were committed openly and wantonly, where any innocent member of the public could have been hurt or killed. Okay. So I'll skip the names again. There's all the names here if you're interested in them. Anyhow, for all defendants, a federal district court judge will determine any sentence after considering sentencing guidelines and other statutory factors. Okay, and here we have another one. This is February 12th, only 12 days ago. Member of the 764 criminal enterprise pleads guilty to racketeering, conspiracy, and other charges. Another RICO, and this one going into the cyber stalking, another behavior of the troll farm. This is another behavior of the troll farm. This says Jaime Tinajero, 25, pleaded guilty yesterday in the Western District of Kentucky to the following charges contained in the superseding information: racketeering, conspiracy, that's RICO; online enticement, that's domestic terrorism, cyber terrorism on the internet, like Troll Farm does; 3 counts of production of CSAM, that's like Troll Farm; 3 counts of distribution of CSAM, Troll Farm; 5 counts of interstate communications of threats, cyber stalking, and conspiracy to murder, Troll Farm; in aid of racketeering, Troll Farm. Okay. On October 11, 2023, a grand jury in the Western District of Kentucky returned an indictment charging this individual with online enticement and production of CSAM. According to court documents, Tinajero was a self-identified member of the 764. Okay, 764. I covered that before on the channel. I've covered it before. It's also on the community page. If you don't know what it is, Google around or go find my older lives, in which I covered these people who are terrorizing the community. Okay, they're terrorizing children. They're terrorizing adults using the internet, and they go by several names, one of which is 764 Network. The 764 Network's accelerationist goals include social unrest and the downfall of current world order, including the U.S. government. Beginning in 2020, this individual started communicating with and grooming several minors to obtain sexually explicit content from them. He began threatening the safety of a minor and her family, posting online in encrypted platforms like Discord and Telegram and others with 764. All right. Beginning in July 2023 and September 2023, during multiple discussions over social media, probably on Telegram, he and a co-conspirator agreed that Tinajero should kill this young child. Tinajero and the co-conspirator specifically discussed that Tinajero should unalive this young child and dispose of this child's body in a barrel of acid after the murder. He posted multiple messages on various social media websites stating that he planned to unalive this young child with a firearm because this young child refused to provide additional CSAM material. It's real. It's real. On August 26th, Tinajero posted on Telegram, "I'm determined to die. If I gotta kill her, I can't let her live and F with dudes and girls while I'm sick and miserable. And I'm gonna live stream it." Tinajero also posted a picture of Jane Doe on September 2nd, 2023. He posted on Telegram, "I want to kill them so bad, just show up at their cribs and shoot 100 rounds in 5 seconds. I didn't want to do anything because I was scared of dying or in prison, but now I'm determined to die if I have to after getting rid of this child." Tinajero also began soliciting others to assist in attempting to kill this young child. The FBI is currently investigating this case. Again, this is just 12 days ago, involving the RICO case against members of 764. It's a accelerationist white supremacist organization that intends to force or coerce young children to provide sexually explicit material that they then use to blackmail and encourage the children to self-harm, etc. And we know that they possibly have troll farm ties. Yes, if you think Delphi is an isolated incident, you have something else to learn, because this is a criminal enterprise, okay? This enterprise, when it is discovered what Delphi is, your minds will be blown. The connections to other murders in the Midwest, the connections to the online dark web community of sickos the spreading of gore porn, of snuff films, of CSAM. These people are absolutely sick. And I swear to you, the Dropbox was real. The tentacles were real. Anthony shots were real. And these people are real. And Abby and Libby and dead. And Lyric and Elizabeth are dead. And there's a whole lot of children dead at the hands of these people and a whole lot of adults. Just think of the Delphi body count, which is a thing. Here's another one, also from February 12th. 8 Venezuelan nationals charged with offenses relating to their roles in a transnational commercial sex enterprise. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. A 4-count indictment was unsealed on February 11th in the Middle District of Tennessee, charging 8 defendants with various offenses arising from their respective roles in a transnational commercial sex enterprise, also related to Delphi. Remember, I've told you before, we have sex workers who have infiltrated the case. Okay, they are, the troll farm runs deep in the sex worker community. According to court documents, the defendants operated an illegal commercial sex and sex trafficking enterprise out of Nashville from July 2022 to March 2024. According to the indictment, one of the defendants facilitated the victim's arrival in the U.S. Okay. Have you seen Taken? Let me pause this. I would highly recommend any of you ladies, particularly you older ladies who watch the internet or watch YouTubes and have not seen the movie Taken. I know it's a rather old movie. It's been some years that it's been out. The Taken movies are extremely accurate and extremely educational, because this is a thing. Human trafficking is real. Sex trafficking is real. The taking of children for the purpose of putting them into the sex trade is real. And until you understand it, you won't understand all of these cases that will be dropping in the next years. Okay. This is just the beginning. This will be snowballing. Okay. This will be snowballing. I guarantee it. According to the indictment, once the defendants facilitated the victim's arrival in the U.S., the defendants utilized online commercial sex websites to post advertisements for victims, and then used the internet and their cell phones to direct commercial sex buyers to engage in commercial sex with the trafficked victims at the motels before collecting the proceeds from that commercial sex for the defendant's benefit. The indictment demonstrates our commitment to stop human trafficking whenever and wherever we find it, and to hold those involved individuals accountable, says Acting Attorney Robert McGuire of the Middle District of Tennessee. We are coming after transnational criminal organizations like Tren de Agua, but this case shows that we will also do whatever it takes to stop those who would traffic women and girls, no matter who is behind their suffering. The success of this operation to stop Tren de Agua operating in communities is a significant step forward in our ongoing battle against human trafficking and transnational organized crime. And Special Agent in Charge, Rana Saud of the Homeland Security Investigations in Nashville, says, this investigation exemplifies the importance of collaboration among local, state, and federal agencies in ending these crimes in our communities while leaving a trail of suffering in their wake. We will not allow TDA or any criminal organization or organized syndicate like those who are trafficking the girls out of Indiana to get a stronghold in Tennessee. Oh, if only Indiana would do the same. Remember, I've shown you before, let's just take an aside here. Remember, I've shown you before the sultry DVDs and all of that material and all of those girls and all of those websites and how that was all a thing that was going before the murders of Abby and Libby. And it's still on the community page. We are thankful for our local, state, and federal partners who joined us in investigating, and we stand prepared to continue aggressively investigating human trafficking in our state, holding human traffickers and buyers accountable, and helping victims take their take their first step towards becoming survivors. Human trafficking is among the most heinous crimes the FBI encounters, says Special Agent in Charge Joseph Carrico of the FBI National Field Office. This devastating crime exploits vulnerable members of communities nationwide, including those in Tennessee. The FBI and our partners are committed to rescuing victims, investigating and prosecuting traffickers, and supporting survivors. While the focus of this investigation centers around human trafficking, TDA is involved in all manner of criminal activity to include the sale of narcotics and dangerous drugs, says Special Agent in Charge Jim Scott of the DEA Louisville Division. The dedicated men and women of the DEA will continue to work side by side with our federal, state, and local partners to rid our communities of this transnational criminal gang element like TDA. The trafficking of human beings is aberrant to all of us. It's a modern day form of slavery, says Chief John Drake of the Metro Nashville PD. I want to be very clear. Our PD will always make human trafficking an investigative priority regardless of where the suspects are from. And we will work with our partners from an international and coordinated law enforcement response. A grand jury in the Middle District of Tennessee previously returned the 4-count indictment charging all 8 defendants, and all 8, there's 8 in this one, for their respective roles in facilitating the recruitment of young women from impoverished parts of Venezuela and other South and Central American countries, then facilitating their transportation across the U.S. southern border and into the United States, across state lines, into Nashville, to engage in commercial sex with locals to the Nashville area. Yes, it's true. Human trafficking is a real thing. 3 of the defendants are additionally charged with sex trafficking conspiracy for conspiring to use force, fraud, and coercion to compel the women into engaging in this commercial sex and commercial sex acts for the defendant's profit that include invoking alleged ties to the Venezuelan gang TDA and its reputation for violence. This indictment further charges defendant Rivero with 1 count of possession of a firearm by an illegal alien. Mother and son defendants Rivero de Caldera and Mota Rivero are charged with conspiring to impose coercive debt scheme upon the individuals who are victims to compel them to continue to engage in commercial sex acts until the defendants deemed their debts repaid. You understand what that is. That's how it always works. Okay? If convicted of conspiracy to commit sex trafficking, the defendants face a maximum penalty of life in prison. That's right. A conspiracy to commit interstate transportation for the purpose of prostitution carries a maximum of 5 years in prison, and conspiracy to commit interstate and foreign travel or transportation in aid of racketeering enterprises carries a maximum of 5 years. If convicted of possession by a firearm by an illegal alien, Mota Riviero also faces a maximum penalty of 15 years. Okay. Here's another one. High-ranking affiliate of Sinaloa cartel charged with drug conspiracy in Chicago. And this is the same day, y'all. Same day. High-ranking affiliate of Sinaloa cartel charged with drug conspiracy in Chicago. When I'm telling you, DELPHI ties to these people. You listen. A grand jury in Chicago returned an indictment yesterday charging a high-ranking affiliate of the Sinaloa cartel for allegedly manufacturing and distributing fentanyl, coke, heroin, and other drugs, probably meth, and importing them into the U.S. As alleged, the defendant conspired to traffic dangerous drugs, including fentanyl, into the U.S. and employed dozens of gunmen to protect his drug trafficking operation. And the leadership of the Guzman faction of the Sinaloa cartel, said supervisory official Antoinette Bacon of the U.S. Department of Justice Criminal Division. Stopping Mexican cartels from poisoning our communities with fentanyl and other narcotics is a top priority of this administration. Today's indictment demonstrates that the criminal division is relentless in its pursuit of the drug traffickers who profit at the expense of the American people. Our nation's fentanyl crisis has devastated individuals and families in northern Illinois and throughout the country, says Morris Pasquale for the Northern District of Illinois. Our office will continue to work with our LE partners to disrupt the production and trafficking of fentanyl and other dangerous narcotics. Yes, that's right. Like the coke, the heroin, the meth, and everything else that these people are trafficking. Today's indictment demonstrates that the criminal division is relentless in its pursuit of the drug traffickers who profit at the expense of the American people. Our nation's fentanyl crisis has devastated individuals. From San Diego to Chicago to DC, we are united in bringing down the traffickers who are pushing these poisons into American communities, said U.S. Attorney Tara McGrath for the Southern District of California. We are attacking at every level, from the street dealers to cartel leaders. This indictment reinforces the FBI's unwavering commitment to hold accountable those who endanger our communities and traffic violence and drugs across our borders, said Assistant Director Chad Yarbrough of the FBI's Criminal Investigative Division. Let this serve as a clear message. If you engage in cartel activity, we will pursue you and bring you to justice. Together with our law enforcement partners at every level, we will remain fully committed to protecting the American people and stopping the flow of these dangerous drugs into our nation. According to documents, these individuals allegedly conspired to obtain fentanyl precursors, manufacture, distribute, and import into the United States fentanyl, cocaine, heroin, meth, and others. Okay. Collectively known as the Chapitos, they allegedly conspired to obtain these drugs and others, and allegedly illegally possessed firearms in furtherance of the drug trafficking. The Chapitos are the sons of Joaquin Guzman Loera, also known as El Chapo. These are the sons of El Chapo, who led the Sinaloa cartel before being convicted by a federal jury in Brooklyn and sentenced to life in prison. The Chapitos allegedly assumed their father's role as leaders of the Sinaloa. Chapitos have been charged with drug trafficking and other U.S. indictments. Okay. The FBI and Homeland Security investigations investigated this case. Valuable assistance was provided by the DEA Special Ops Division, Bilateral Investigations Unit, and the Portland, Oregon Police Bureau Narcotics and Organized Crime Unit, High Intensity Drug Trafficking Areas Interdiction Task Force. This case is part of an organized drug enforcement task force operation that identifies, disrupts, and dismantles drug trafficking organizations and other criminal networks that threaten the U.S. using a prosecutor-led, intelligence-driven, multi-agency approach that leverages the strengths of federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies. All right, so that catches us up to speed with the several RICOs that I wanted to demonstrate to you or display to you as those that have come down in the month of February alone. I hope that you hear me very well out there. Remember, recently we did a show where we brought out the similar things in the month of January, in the last weeks of January. So this catches us up with the RICO indictments that have just dropped in the past couple weeks. And I do hope that you paid attention. Those are significant. I mean, remember, you're taking down the banditos, the chapitos, and others. Okay, this little Huntsville, and there will be others. Okay, there will be others. This is just the snowball. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Okay, it's going to snowball. Things are getting rolling here. Now, so in this, we saw elements of street violence. Okay, let's do a brief review before we continue. Street violence in regards to primarily the banditos, that was focused primarily on the murders, on the beatings, and that sort of thing, the arsons. Okay. Then we had the human trafficking that we read about, okay, in Nashville and other places where they're bringing these charges down as a RICO for the human traffickers, okay? And then this one with this Sinaloa in Chicago, the little Chapitos, this was about primarily drugs. So you've got violence, you've got humans, you've got drugs, and over in this Huntsville, you're dealing with police corruption. Okay? So what it's looking like is every facet of these criminal enterprises is beginning to be addressed. You may or may not have known that my theory with Delphi has always been that this is exactly what we're dealing with. Every facet of this, we are dealing with corrupt law enforcement. We're dealing with street violence, arsons, murders. We're dealing with human trafficking of little girls in Indiana. We're dealing with the manufacturing, the obtaining of precursors, the manufacturing of drugs, the moving of drugs. Remember, I've said that Indianapolis is a hub city. Indiana is a hub for all of this, okay? So Indiana is a hub for every facet of this type of criminal enterprise. And it truly is my belief that what we've stumbled onto with Delphi is a crime that has connections to this enterprise. It's the reason that there's been this sort of bizarre cover-up and the bizarre reactions that you get from people associated with this crime. Remember, I've said so many times that little kids get killed all the time, okay? How many times do you see the amount of absolute insanity following behind a case like that follows behind Delphi? How many times do you see bodies piling up behind a case like have piled up behind Delphi? How many times have you seen the extreme push of the social media narrative like you've seen in Delphi? And that comes from creators, from mainstream media, from the family, from the troll farms, and from the prosecutor and law enforcement, who have all made an effort to go out onto social media, and they have also incentivized an entire troll farm, everyone to go onto social media and push so hard their narrative. When have you ever seen anything like that? Behind the murder of 2 little girls. I mean, hey, kids are killed every day. Now, if these particular murders just happen to expose the inner workings or be tied to the inner network of a criminal enterprise, you might see something like this. In other words, if the most powerful people at the center of this criminal enterprise were involved in the murders of these 2 girls, and these murders can be traced back to them, you might see some sort of response like you've seen with Delphi. Okay? This is a cover-up of epic proportions, which is why we're going to move into the second part of the show tonight, which is where we're going to talk about how we feel that this connects to Delphi, okay? Now, the demand for a RICO, what does it mean? It means that there's a cover-up of epic proportions. And this enterprise, it's not just in one area. We're not just talking about the prosecutor. We're not just talking about the court. We're not just talking about the local PD. We're not just talking about the state police. We're not just talking about the county. We're not just talking about the family. We're not just talking about the witnesses. We are talking about everybody associated with this case. You see, if the Unified Command purposefully botched this investigation and purposefully deleted evidence, purposefully ignored viable leads, and purposefully allowed witnesses to lie, and purposefully ignored witnesses who exist and disappeared them, that's bad enough. But then, if the state police over in their role as oversight of this allowed it, it's compounded. And then, if the prosecutor, furthermore, had knowledge of all of this and allowed it, that's even further. And then if the judge knowingly rubber stamped all of this, it's even worse. And then if the family approved, allowed, and co-signed, it's staggering. And then if the witnesses conspired, it's astonishing. And what would it mean? How would sex trafficking tie in to the Delphi murders or the Evansdale murders? How would meth trafficking, drug trafficking? How would motorcycle gangs or gang activity tie in to these murders? How would the civil power structure in Carroll County, in Delphi, and in the state of Indiana as a whole tie in? It's big. It's big. It's honestly big, in my opinion. So let's take a little look. Okay, what we're going to do, we're going to take a little look at some things. So this is from the federal guidebook. What are RICO counts or charges? And what is necessary to trigger or to flip that switch? Well, this is something I've shown you over a year and a half ago or so. Federal guideline is a RICO charge where the predicate acts consist only of state offenses will not be approved. Okay, except, so you guys listen, because I want to put this, I want to look at you in the eyes and say this. remember, with these statutes, you have to listen to every single word. Every word has meaning. A RICO charge where the predicate act consists only of state offenses will not be approved except in the following circumstances. So, what are the exceptions? So, in other words, if the state is engaging in a criminal enterprise, what exceptions will allow the feds to charge the state actors? Here we go. A, local law enforcement officials are unlikely to investigate and prosecute otherwise meritorious cases in which the federal government has significant interest. B, significant organized crime involvement exists. Or C, the prosecution of significant political or governmental individuals may pose special problems for local prosecutors. Okay, so this means that in order for the feds to be able to trigger RICO charges on in to the state of Indiana, actors from the state of Indiana, they have to be acting as a special prosecutor because the prosecution of these significant figures or individuals may pose problems for local prosecutors. Significant organized crime involvement exists, or local law enforcement are unlikely to investigate and prosecute otherwise meritorious cases in which the federal government has significant interest. Okay. Specific guidelines for Section 1959 prosecutions. Okay. In deciding whether to approve a prosecution under Section 1959, the Organized Crime and Gang section will analyze the prosecution memorandum and proposed indictment to determine whether there is a legitimate reason the offense cannot or should not be prosecuted by state or local authorities. For example, federal prosecution may be appropriate where local authorities do not have the resources to prosecute, where local authorities are reasonably believed to be corrupt, and that's what I've circled. Okay, I've tried to circle the appropriate exceptions. Okay, so federal prosecutor may be appropriate where local authorities are reasonably believed to be corrupt. That's the circled portion. Where local authorities have requested federal participation, or where the offense is closely related to a federal investigation or prosecution. A prosecution will not be authorized over the objection of local authorities in the absence of a compelling reason. Accordingly, every prosecution memorandum must state the views of local authorities with respect to the proposed prosecution or the reasons for not soliciting them. In addition, the specific factors set forth in the following sections will be considered with respect to all proposed prosecutions. B, Section 1959 was enacted to combat, quote, contract murders and other violent crimes by organized crime figures. Okay, the statutory language is extremely broad in that it covers such conduct as a threat to commit an assault and other relatively minor conduct normally prosecuted by local authorities. Thus, although the involvement of traditional organized crime will not be a requirement for approval of proposed prosecutions, a prosecution will not be authorized unless the violent crimes involved are substantial because of seriousness of the injuries, number of incidents, or other aggravating factors. So, in other words, the supporting area here that I've circled is what's important. This statutory language covers conduct that seems to be minimal, even, such as a threat to commit assault and other relatively minor conduct normally prosecuted by locals. Okay, so you see how if you put the two together, this is why I've circled these two, where local authorities are reasonably believed to be corrupt and can even cover such conduct that seems to be minor, such as threats to commit assault, etc. Okay, which means there's some good discretion that the federal prosecutors have. In other words, if the federal prosecutors are looking at this and suspect that the local authorities are reasonably believed to be possibly corrupt, they can bring down these federal charges, even if it's over minor things. Okay, it doesn't have to be like straight up murks. Okay, and see here, let's continue. The statutory definition of enterprise is also very broad. It is closely related to the definition of the same term in the RICO statute of 18 U.S. Code. It should be noted that the definition in Section 1959, unlike the RICO definition, includes a requirement of an effect on interstate commerce as part of the definition and does not include an individual within the definition. No prosecution under Section 1959 will be approved unless the enterprise has an identifiable structure. Well, we tick that box. And purpose, apart from the racketeering activity and crimes of violence it is engaged in, and otherwise meets the standards for a RICO prosecution. See, that's why you're seeing this come down onto the Hansville, because with that Hansville, it's the law enforcement structure itself that gives the that ticks the box, for because it has an identifiable structure. Okay, so this is what I'm saying. Do we not have an identifiable structure in the Delphi murders when it comes to all the various law enforcement agencies and the court and the prosecutor's office? The term racketeering activity is borrowed directly from the RICO statute, 18 U.S. Code, section 1961-1. It will be construed in the same way under 1959 as it is under RICO for purposes of approval. Okay? So the argument I'm making here is that it's relatively minor what's necessary and what kind of jurisdiction these feds have to prove. All they have to prove is reasonable belief of corruption and a pre-existing structure and purpose to the organization, and that significant crime exists, and that law enforcement are unlikely to investigate, the local law enforcement are unlikely to investigate and prosecute cases that have merit, even if they include minor offenses. So are you getting the whole picture that I'm building you in this package? So whether it's RICO or whether it's Section 1959 racketeering prosecutions, this is the context in which we're operating, or they're operating. Okay. Now, what's interesting is that I'm bringing in here Delphi into this, and from every angle. Okay, from every angle. So let me see if I can gather my senses here, because there's really no best place to start. But I guess I'll start from here, okay? So remember, we're going to do a really quick review of some of the most concerning elements. And hey, this is not everyone. Okay, this is not for everyone. And in this review, we're not concerned in this review of the decisions that the judge has made in regards to approving these motions or denying or any of that. Because all of this is in the record. All of this has factually occurred. And so this is for mere reference. But remember, Judge Gold does not have jurisdiction over federal prosecutors. Okay. So anyhow, you may remember this. We're kind of gonna maybe go backwards, but you remember this motion to correct error, okay, which we were more recently looking at. Now remember that one of the huge railroadings here with Richard Allen was the violation of the 6th and 14th Amendment rights, deprived of counsel at the safekeeping proceedings. Okay. These proceedings, or at least the safekeeping proceeding, the initial was a critical stage, and Mr. Allen was not represented. Okay. And this says that Mr. Allen was interrogated and arrested on October 26, okay, and booked into the jail under a pseudonym. The next day, October 27th, the very next day, keep that in mind as you're tracking me here. Keep that in mind as we go. The very next day, his wife hired attorney Brett Gibson to represent Mr. Allen. Okay. Sheriff Lesenby confirmed a receipt that Mr. Gibson had notified him on October 27th of his representation of Mr. Allen. Okay. Also, on October 27th, Mr. Gibson contacted Mr. McClellan and notified him of his representation of Mr. Allen. Okay. Also, on October 27th, Mr. Gibson visited Mr. Allen and advised him of his rights and not to discuss anything over the telephone or with any of these individuals. Okay. On October 28th, although Mr. McClelland and Mr. Lesenby, or sheriff at the time, so prosecutor, sheriff, knew that Mr. Allen was represented by Mr. Gibson, Mr. Allen was charged with 2 counts of murder. And Judge Diener, judge now, held Mr. Allen's initial hearing. So although the judge, the prosecutor, and the sheriff all knew of Mr. Allen's representation by Mr. Gibson, they held an initial hearing, okay, on October 28th, the day after they were informed of that representation. And they had this critical stage hearing for safekeeping. Again, and they transferred him then, and then on November 1st, Mr. Allen decides to write a letter requesting court-appointed counsel. Okay? Now, on November 3rd, Sheriff, at the time, Sheriff Lesenby, made a safekeeping request to Judge Diener. Now, at this time, Mr. Allen should have had double counsel, okay? He should have had Mr. Gibson as his primary counsel for the October 28th initial hearing, he should have had court-appointed counsel by November 3rd for the safekeeping, okay? Now keep in mind, it gets richer because what then ensued is that Mr. Lesenby, or then Sheriff Lesenby, asked Mr. Diener, or then Judge Diener, to assist him in drafting a safekeeping request. And this is no lie. This is no lie. So Judge Diener decided to engage in ex parte communications with Sheriff Lesenby and drafted the safekeeping request and handed back to Sheriff Lesenby to affix his signature. Sheriff Lesenby then hands it back to Judge Diener, who then issues an order and affixes his signature to an order on his own safekeeping request. Judge Diener violated Rules 310 and 2.9 of the Code of Judicial Conduct in Indiana in engaging in this ex parte communication, drafting the safekeeping order, and he should have recused himself and requested appointment of a special judge. But what did he do? Well, instead, he gaslit the public and called them bloodthirsty or bloodlusty. Okay, and dangerous. The public is dangerous because the public wants information in the form of filings. The public wants, look, let's put this in a context. The public's dangerous because the public wants information about what's going on. But instead of recusing himself and asking for appointment of a special judge, instead, he gaslights the public, calls them dangerous and bloodlusty for wanting information, then signs his own safekeeping request. He signs an order on his own request, then recuses himself. You see? You see how that worked? Okay. Furthermore, there are questions about jurisdiction, okay? There's also questions about the lack of factual finding because there were no verified there was no verification to this request. There was no evidence. It was just all a willy-nilly, okay? And there are receipts for every step of the way, and we got them, okay? They are out there. So you deprived of counsel at a critical stage of a criminal prosecution. You had a safekeeping proceeding, this critical proceeding, without his lawyer present when you knew he had an attorney. The attorney had a right to interpose objections to the safekeeping order. That was never allowed. Okay, and we know what happened as a result of all this. The result of all this is that, and let me pull this down again to make my point. The result of all of this is that Mr. Allen, a pretrial detainee, a factually, technically innocent man, was handed it over to Westville, wherein he began to be tortured and abused. What do I mean by that? Well, he was forcibly medicated. He was constantly threatened. Not only him, his life, his wife's life, his daughter's life, and maybe even his mother-in-law's life. His life and his entire family's lives were threatened constantly. He was malnourished. He was thrown into solitary confinement, i.e., safekeeping or suicide watch, for more than a year, at which he began a process of physical and mental deterioration. As he was physically and mentally deteriorating, he had a Delphi fangirl, an absolute maniacal consumer of Delphi content, someone who was not only active in every single Delphi channel and Reddit and Discord, but also colluding in private message chains with both the state actors and defense actors. She was info farming. Okay, I don't know if you are aware that that woman was in text chains with defense insiders, milking them for information. She was taking all of the information she was gathering from all over the internet and private conversations from defense insiders and state insiders, then going back, forcibly medicating Richard Allen while feeding him and baiting information out of him as well. And what do we end up with? Statements that are suggestive of coercion, which the prosecutor and the law enforcement and troll farm turned around and called confessions. And if you're interested in that, I did an entire show called Brian Harshman or whatever. Or maybe I called it Confessions. I can't remember, but it's not important. I did a show in which I went through Brian Harshman and how factually, see, when they engaged on these PR smear campaigns, they went out there saying he confessed more than 60 times. He confessed 65 times. This was repeated endlessly on the troll farm channels. What do troll farm channels mean? That means the channels that collude with the state of Indiana and actors from the state of Indiana. They ran out there spreading the narrative to all the potential future jurors that he had confessed 60 something times. And even Brian Harshman tried to relay that impression. Okay, but upon further discussion, what actually surfaced is it was more like 5 times. And all of those other 60 times were statements that Brian Harshman loosely interpreted as suggestive of some sort of confession-like nature. Do you see how willy-nilly and loose and ambiguous that is? But remember, if you track all this back, all of this goes back to what Judge Diener, Nicholas McClellan, and Sheriff Lesenby did at that crucial juncture, October 28th, November 3rd, when they knew he should have been represented. Okay, now it gets worse. It gets worse. And remember, this judge was unethical in drafting and then issuing an order for safekeeping on his own request. Okay, it's like that's the beginning of the railroading. Hello. Okay, and before I even get to the next piece, let's not forget, because I might forget if I don't say it now. Let's not forget that Tony Liggett also participated in the railroading of Richard Allen by drafting a PCA, 2 PCAs, one of which misrepresented witness statements, omitted pertinent information from witnesses, what's the word? I'm at a loss. I'm at a loss, but he confounded witness statements. In other words, let's say you take 5 vehicles. You take 5 vehicles. You turn them all into one. Okay? You twist the words of the witnesses. You take multiple descriptions of multiple people and you turn them all into one. You omit pertinent information like the presence of Daniel Pearson at the trails. Where, hey, in that PCA, where is Daniel Pearson? You omit pertinent facts like that Betsy Blair said she saw a 1965 Comet-looking vehicle. Was it her that said that? A 1965 Mercury Comet looks nothing. Conflated. Thank you, Shibby. Jesus Christ. I don't know why I can't speak tonight. There's so much on my mind because we got a lot more to go. He conflated all of the witness descriptions of vehicles and individuals. Okay? He allowed. You have Sarah Carbaugh, whose own family members were highly suspected as being involved in some way and whose phones may have pinged at the crime scene. There's more to that story. You had Sarah Carbaugh, who acted like a maniac in court. Okay, acted like an unhinged maniac in court with a clear motivation to make Richard Allen guilty. It was so bad, her behavior was so bad that even the jurors had to sort of disregard it, according to one of the jurors who has spoken. That her behavior was so bad, and the defense pointed it out so well, that even they had to say, we don't know if she's trustworthy. Because she wasn't. She was motivated to prosecute Richard Allen to keep the heat off her father. Possibly. But also, she may have been motivated to change her story, because remember, another thing that Liggett did in that PCA, he used the term muddy and bloody, which was never a term that witness, quote unquote, said. Matter of factly, what that witness did say was muddy more than 20 times in the first 2 interviews. Muddy, 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 muddy. Then the next interview, muddy, 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 muddy. Then the next interview, okay, years later, bloody, 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 and then bloody, 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 bloody. Not saying muddy once. So what happened? What would cause her to change her story like so many of these alleged witnesses have done over the years? Remember, almost all of the witnesses have changed their stories drastically over the years. Oh yeah, we'll be getting to that. Because like I said, if this is a RICO, the witnesses need to be in it, because the witnesses are part of it. Liggett, twisted witness statements, twisted descriptions, conflated details of vehicles, omitted details of a vehicle. Like, who was in the 1965 looking Comet vehicle? That actually existed. It had to have existed. And who was in a purple vehicle? Who was in a white truck? Who was in a white car? There's all of these vehicles, but everyone's forgotten about everything except Richard Allen's car. Liggett knowingly conflated those descriptions, misrepresented witness statements, omitted information, omitted witnesses. Where's Daniel Pearson again? There are other witnesses who are omitted in that PCA. Do you guys know that out there? There are other witnesses who are omitted from the PCA, several of them. So you've got several vehicles omitted, several witnesses omitted. It seems like all they did was pick and choose what they wanted to be able to twist into some angle to make Richard Allen fit. Okay, are you seeing a pattern here? And then, in violation of the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment, in Napui v. Illinois and his progeny, the state presented testimony of Brad Weber. False testimony that the prosecutor knowingly allowed. Brad Weber claimed that he arrived home in his white van about 2:30 p.m. on February 13th. And Mr. McClellan knowingly elicited false testimony or failed to correct it. But in either case, it was false testimony that was allowed to be presented to the jury. A conviction obtained through the use of false evidence, known to be such by representatives of the state, must fall under the 14th Amendment. His due process was violated again. Now, if this cell phone stopped moving at 2:32 p.m., and if Mr. Weber did not get home until 2:45 p.m., then there's absolutely no way that Mr. Allen was the cause of that phone being left at the crime scene. Do you understand where we're getting at with that? This is a clip or a still shot, and Weber's van is circled in red here, arriving home at 2:45 p.m. And in addition, the FBI confirms that with his first ping showing at 2:50. Okay. The FBI subject information sheet, which was Exhibit 3E, shows that at 2:50 is the first ping of his cell phone at his property. So you have a corroborating set of evidences here. You have the security video, which shows the van passing at 2:45 p.m. on the way to his home. And then you have the FBI subject information sheet for Mr. Weber showing that the first ping happens at 2:50. So if Weber is arriving at 2:45 to 2:50, how on earth is that who startles the person who causes that phone to be left at 2:32? You see, the narrative and the timeline instantly breaks down. Second, you have Ron Logan's confession to Reese Davis. Okay, now much ado has been made of that, particularly with the fact that a box cutter was mentioned. Okay, and that was page 18. Let's say, there you go. Box cutter was mentioned. Okay. Now, there will be more on that. We're going to get to that right now. Let's take a little detour here, because we need to get to this, because you may remember that in the more recent updates, it was revealed that Reese Davis wrote 8 letters to McClelland, 7 letters before trial, 1 letter after trial. McClelland failed to act and failed to turn over those letters. Those letters alleging that Ron Logan and Kagan Klein both, in some way, confessed to involvement in the murders of Abby and Libby. That's right. So let's take a look at this. This says, on February 14th, Allen filed his verified motion to preserve and produce specific evidence related to letters and video the defense has been told were sent to the prosecutor's office. Remember, there's supposed to be a video of Reese Davis having this discussion with law enforcement, in addition to the letters. These letters and video that were sent to the prosecutor's office allegedly contained exculpatory evidence of which the prosecution had never provided to the defense. The person that informed the defense of this evidence was Reese Davis. Since the filing of that document, the defense has met with another witness on February 22nd, 2025, just 2 days ago, to sign an affidavit concerning his knowledge of the letters that Reese claims to have sent. Allen's attorneys have attached a copy of the affidavit of James Winters to this pleading as further evidence that the defense has good faith belief, based on due diligence, that the state of Indiana had in its possession certain exculpatory evidence before October 2024 trial, and that it did not turn over this potentially exculpatory evidence to the defense, and to further reinforce its request for this court to order the prosecution to preserve and produce those letters to the defense, as well as all video related to any law enforcement interview of Reese Davis. Okay? So they attach this affidavit here of Mr. James Winters. It says, comes now, affiant James Winters, and swears and affirms the following. My name is Mr. James Winters, and I am 67 years of age. I was a dairy farmer in northern Indiana for 50 years and currently raise Holstein steers. I have never been arrested. I have never been in any criminal trouble. I don't use illegal drugs or drink. I understand that lying in this affidavit would or could result in a charge of perjury, since I am swearing that the things I am saying in this affidavit are true. The things I am saying in this affidavit are true. I have no reason to lie, and I would not lie. In the fall of 2024, yes, that's before trial, my nephew, Reese Davis, asked that I contact the Carroll County clerk or the prosecutor's office to find out if they were receiving letters that Reese had written and addressed to the prosecutor. Reese told me that the reason he was asking me this favor was because he had written several letters to the Carroll County prosecutor, Nick McClellan, about the Delphi murders, and was expecting that those letters would prompt the prosecutor and our law enforcement to meet with him to discuss the information contained in those letters. It was my understanding that Reese began writing those letters in the weeks before the man who was accused of the Delphi murders was going to trial in fall of 2024. I did, in fact, call the Carroll County prosecutor's office, and I did talk to a nice lady. I don't know if she was a clerk or a secretary or something else. I called the prosecutor's office sometime in August, September, or October of 2024. I believe it was closer to October. I told the lady who answered the phone my name, and further told her that I was calling on behalf of my nephew, Reese Davis. I then asked if she knew whether Reese's letters had been received. The lady immediately told me that she was aware of Reese Davis's name and indicated that they had received, I believe she said, multiple letters from Reese. That's right. The lady told me that she was aware of Reese Davis's name and indicated that they had received multiple letters from Reese. The lady further indicated that every letter she had received from Reese Davis, she had passed on to the people in charge of the investigation of the Delphi murders. I asked the lady if she would let the investigators know that I called and that Reese wanted to talk to them and that he had expected someone would talk to him, and that she said she would relay the message to investigators. I don't remember the name of the lady who answered the phone. I would not lie for anyone, including my nephew. This is just the truth. This affidavit consists of 3 pages and 20 paragraphs. I did not prepare this document. Rather, it was prepared by Attorney Baldwin because I would not know how to prepare such a document. Mr. Baldwin typed out what I told him. Furthermore, I know that Mr. Baldwin is not my attorney, nor is he Reese's attorney. Everything stated in this document is true, and I am willing to testify in court to these facts if I am asked to do so. All right. And while we're at it, let's show you the receipts for this. This is the these are the undeniable receipts of Judge Diener drafting and having Mr. then Sheriff Tobe Lesenby sign the safekeeping order for Richard Allen, which Judge Diener then issued an order on before recusing himself. Now, okay, see, this here is a safekeeping request drafted by Diener, signed by Lesenby. This here is the affidavit of Tobe Lesenby saying what he did, okay? But you notice he leaves something special out of this. He left something really special off of this document. And you know what that is? Anyone guess? What did he leave off of this affidavit? Oh, yeah, the fact that that he asked the judge to draft the safekeeping request. The judge did so and then asked him to sign it. Yeah, he left that off. And here's a court order issued by Judge Diener in response to his own safekeeping request, illegally signed by Mr. Then Sheriff Lesenby. Okay. It says Mr. Allen has the right to have a judge other than Judge Diener decide whether to issue safekeeping at Lesenby's request. That's because Judge Diener had engaged in ex parte communications with Sheriff Lesenby, helping Sheriff Lesenby draft his safekeeping request in violation of Rule 310 of the Code of Judicial Conduct. Having violated both Rules 310 and 29, Judge Diener was obligated under Rule 211 of the Code to recuse himself and request appointment of a special judge before he issued the safekeeping order, not after, which is what he did on November 3rd. Here is from a hearing, the direct examination of Chief Deputy Tobe Lesenby, who was the former sheriff. And it says, so in November or in late 2022, you were acting sheriff, is that right? Yes, sir. The elected sheriff. Yes, sir. Okay. And is it fair to say that you filed a motion essentially asking for a safekeeping order with this court back in November of 2022? Yes, sir. Okay. And have you had a chance to review the motion in advance of coming here today? Briefly, yes. Okay. And then he says, here's the motion. Did you draft this motion yourself? Actually, I had presented a similar motion request, I should say, to the court. And as I recall, the court had actually come up or provided this particular document. Okay, so let me see if I can ask a more direct question. Did you prepare that motion in your office on a computer, essentially? I prepared a similar motion. Again, the wording was adjusted by the court. Okay. So you prepared a document that we presumably don't have today, right? I would assume so, yes. Okay, and you presented that to the court? Yes. And this was the result? Right. And this document? Yes. And then you were asked to sign this? Yes. Who asked you to sign this? The court. Who's the court? Judge Diener. Oof. Okay. Okay. So the information that's contained in this motion, did you offer up all the information, or was some of that offered up by Judge Diener and the others? The wording, if I understand you correctly, was information that I had originally documented in a previous report. And so the wording was simply adjusted in his document. It's just that adjustments were made by the court with this document. Okay, did you provide the court any additional documentation in support of these, I'm going to call these allegations, in support of these allegations before this document was finalized, let's say? Again, the only thing I recall providing is similar information. Okay. Did you offer up any emails, any threats, anything, any evidence, and to go with it? No, sir. Again, I just mentioned that this was obviously high profile. Okay, so the way I understand this is you didn't offer up any support and documentation at all, other than your thoughts about a high profile case or high profile cases in the media, all of which is referenced in here. Yes. Okay. So that's all that. So let me remove this. So he's like, "What, Prof, why are you beating this into the ground?" Well, because that right there was unbelievable. Remember, the judge in that order that justified the safekeeping, which meant to throwing Richard Allen in Westville as a pretrial detainee, where he would be tortured and abused and coerced confessions fished out of him by a Delphi fangirl who was simultaneously medicating him and discussing the case with him that she was gathering from her info farming activities on all of social media and in private messages with defense insiders and state actors. All of that, what started that ball rolling was Judge Diener drafting for Leatherby the safekeeping request, asking him to sign it, which he admitted to in that transcript, then him signing it, and then Judge Diener also issuing the order on that. And all the time, they both blamed the high-profile nature of the case and the public's bloodlust for information as the reason that they need to put him into safekeeping. And he then recuses himself. But see, it gets better, because this is a non-stop railroading of this man. Look at this one, okay? Stacey Diener. You guys know Stacey Diener. What did she do here? Well, the affidavit of Stacey Eldridge states that dirt or water damage could not have caused the auxiliary jack on Liberty's phone to log wired headphones plugged in and wired headphones unplugged. Okay? Remember that this phone that they allege belonged to the victims, that was found there underneath one of the victims. They allege that this phone, far after 2 p.m., and by that I mean at 5:49 or no, 5:44 p.m., 5:45 p.m., which is hours after Mr. Richard Allen would have left the area if he had committed these crimes, if the state's timeline was accurate. At that 5:45 time period, someone plugs something in to that 1/4-inch auxiliary headphone jack. And to make things even more concerning, hours later, nearly 5 hours later, at 10:32 p.m., someone unplugs whatever was plugged into that headphone or auxiliary jack. Did I say 1/4-inch? Maybe it's 1/8 inch. Those are small jacks. But someone is handling the phone at 5:44 p.m. and then coming back and handling it again at 10:32 7:32 p.m. Okay? And Miss Eldridge, being a very well-vetted expert, formerly employed with the FBI, etc., gave the affidavit that absolutely not was it absolutely was not water damage. Okay. Now you'll see here. Oh, sorry, maybe I'm messing up. You'll remember this. This is from your motion to compel and request for sanctions. Wrong one. Okay. Sorry. We're going to go for this one. This is your other. I don't know how many of you guys remember that there's more than one motion to compel. Okay. God damn it. Why can't I get the right one? That's the right one. Okay. Motion to compel and request for sanctions. This is the one from March 2024. There's also one from April. Okay. March 2024, motion to compel, request for sanctions. All right, so there's a whole bunch of concern in here. We're going to skip over a lot of it. We're going to number 4. So in March of 2024, the attorneys for Richard Allen were saying, the state of Indiana continues to provide late discovery of items and information that it was required to provide no later than December 14th of 2022. Isn't that something? It says that on February 20th of 2024, the defense sent a certified letter to the prosecutor's office seeking many pieces of evidence that the defense believed to exist, but it appears the state of Indiana failed to turn over. Okay. It says that the state of Indiana did not respond, but rather sent a few things over. 14 months late. Look at it. Number 8. The state of Indiana turned over these few pieces of evidence more than 14 months late without explanation. Okay? It gets better. The history of this prosecutor failing to turn over all relevant evidence has caused great concern to the defense. The prosecutor has only learned of certain evidence because it was referenced or it was deduced in other documents or other investigations. Number 15, many of the items the state of Indiana failed to provide were only provided after the defense specifically requested those items once it came to learn that they existed. For example, data from the victim's phone. Listen to this, it's unbelievable. The data concerning the down the hill video and other important information, this data had been available since 2017. Yet, the state of Indiana did not provide the data until September 8th, 2023. 2023. This September 8th, which was nearly 9 months after the state of Indiana was required to turn over the evidence. That's the down the hill video, y'all, and audio. There's more. Data reports information related to the images of the bridge and blah, blah, blah. Abby walking on the bridge, blah, blah, blah. Not turned over. Okay, not turned over. The week of August 5th, the defense took several depositions. it became clear to the defense that there was information from that Todd Click, Greg Ferenczi, and Kevin Murphy had been investigating a certain group that the defense came to call the Odinist, but we don't call them here because we call them what they actually are, Venlanders. Okay. The prosecution withheld all of that information until September 8th, 2023. Upon receiving this missing evidence, the defense was surprised or shocked to learn that on May 1st, 2023, which was months before September, was it not? The office had signed for Todd Click's letter, which was begging them to take a look at the information on the Venlanders. It took McClelland 131 days to turn over this exculpatory evidence. All right. Now, between September 8th and October 6th of 2023, the state of Indiana dumped 14 fucking hard drives, 5 flash drives, 1 disk, and some e-discovery on the defense. Okay? That which they were required to turn over by December 14th, 2022. Again, 9 months late. They had provided no explanation as to why, or whatsoever had not provided an explanation as to why they did not turn over this massive amount of evidence, basically all of the discovery, until 9 months later than required. But they did so. It was apparent that had the defense not alerted the state of Indiana to their strategy and their interest in the information on these individuals and the investigation of Todd Click, Greg Ferenczi, and Kevin Murphy, that the prosecution or the state would have never turned over this information, potentially exculpatory. Furthermore, there's geofencing evidence. This geofencing evidence was received nearly 10 months after the state was required to turn it over. And yes, it shows several individuals within 60 to 100 yards of the crime scene, traversing the crime scene at the very time that the state of Indiana says that the victims would have been being assaulted at the crime scene. That's right. Nearly 10 months later, they turn over geofencing, which shows several individuals traversing the crime scene. Subsequently, the judge denied the allowing of information about geofencing and who were the individuals traversing the crime scene. One thing's for sure, there's indication that there are several individuals under the bridge, near the bridge, in the creek, at Ron Logan's, at the cemetery, at the High Bridge. The place is crawling with people. The geofencing is crawling with people. And guess what? None of them are Richard Allen. None of them are Richard Allen. Who are these individuals and why did the court exclude information relating to geofencing? Furthermore, the prosecutor attempted to hide the identity of the FBI agents who performed the geofencing analysis, as well as they attempted to hide the individual who performed the analysis for the behavioral analysis unit of the Odinism. They tried to hide Jeffrey Turco, the professor from Purdue. Again, specifically, someone prepared a map which tracked the movements in and around the crime scene. Particularly, some of these movements appeared to have occurred between 3:02 and 3:27 p.m. at the crime scene or within 60 to 100 yards, and none of those phones are associated with Richard Allen. Now, It would be shocking if the owners of those phones were not interviewed or their movements tracked. Okay? Who are those individuals? Were they investigated at all? Were any of the people who were actually there at the crime scene on the 13th of February 2017, were any of them ever investigated? Furthermore, Jerry Holman, this is number 50, says that the Purdue professor reviewed the arrangement of the sticks left on the bodies of the victim and at the crime scene and concluded the sticks on the girls did not represent any type of cult worshiping or Odinism or any type of group that would have committed the crime. However, he got found out to be a liar because after deposition, the defense sought out the Purdue professor, and although the prosecutor and Detective Holman tried to hide the identity of this professor, his identity was found and he was deposed. Okay, now check it out, because when it came to it, guess what he actually said? Let's figure it out here. This is, where are we? Okay, we're going down to the bottom of the page. Mr. Turco said that it was a given that someone was trying to represent Germanic runic script. It was a given. However, Holman alleged that Turco's conclusions were inconclusive. Let me ask you this. Does it was a given that it's Germanic runic script or an attempt to replicate Germanic runic script? Does that sound inconclusive to you? Remember, who's the expert here, Jerry Holman or Jeffrey Turco? It's a given that those formations on the bodies of the girls and over the pool of blood, it's a given that they are an attempt to replicate Germanic runic script. However, Holman says, no, it's inconclusive. Well, Turco and the Harvard University expert were clear in their opinions that the sticks found at the crime scene were an attempt to replicate a Germanic runic script. The only thing they would not say is what the intended meaning was. Turco also stated that you could certainly imagine that this was somebody's idea, that when you do a human sacrifices, you carve runes. Whereas Turco told Holman this to his face and told him that the people who placed these sticks on the girls were clearly attempting to create runes, and that it was entirely plausible that the perpetrator would believe that after a human sacrifice, they should carve or make runes. Holman attempted to deceive the reader of his report by implying Turco totally disregarded the possibility of involving human sacrifice and called the runes inconclusive. So you see what's going on here? You see why I'm highlighting this to you? I hope you do. I hope you see, and I hope you understand why I'm highlighting these facts to you. Furthermore, it's odd that all reports that detail how certain videos on a hard drive, DELPHI DVR, were purportedly deleted between February 13th and February 20, 2017, including the videotaped interviews of Brad Holder and Patrick Westphal, those were not given either. So they were begging for any reports that detail how it was discovered that videos were erased. What attempts were made to retrieve the erased videos? You know, because that's possible. I hope you guys understand that there's drive salvage experts who can go into drives, who can retrieve data that has been written over. Yes, it's possible. I wonder if the state of Indiana realizes that there were experts, data retrieval experts and businesses that can go in and retrieve erased data. But no, you see, you had 70 days of deleted interviews, and that's where we're going to next with our arguments here. How is it that you have 70 days? 70, let me say this. There's no police department in the world that would lose 70 interviews, much less 70 entire days of interviews. We don't even know how many interviews those are. Ask yourself, how many interviews could have occurred over 70 days that have been deleted in the very first months of this investigation? The entire first 6 days are deleted. Let me ask you this. How many people do you think and who were interviewed in the first 6 days of this investigation? There's absolutely zero law enforcement agency in the world who would delete 6 days of recorded interviews. Think critically, or just think logically. There's rarely a law enforcement agency in the world that would delete an entire day of interviews. But here you have not only an entire day, an entire week, an entire month, an entire 2 months, an entire 2.5 months. Furthermore, where are the victims' families' cell phone dumps? Remember, here at the bottom, they're begging for all of Derek German's interviews, recorded interviews, notes, reports, all of Kelsey's phone dumps, interviews. Where are Derek German's interviews, reports, phone dumps? Where are Kelsey's interviews, reports, phone dumps? Where are Cody Patty's interviews, reports, phone dumps? Where are Becky Patty's, Mike Patty's interviews? Anna Williams, Carrie Timmons, interviews, reports, phone dumps? Where are the families? Everything. Oh, this is so much worse than you could imagine. Here, Kyle Smith's interviews, reports, phone dumps. And anyone else that received either or both images taken on the bridge purportedly from Libby's Snapchat. That would mean Erica Gibson, interviews, reports, phone dumps. How about anything from Snapchat? Look at the bottom. Anything from Snapchat. All reports, documentation, and analysis from Snapchat or any law enforcement agency dealing with the data concerning those images, blah, 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 blah. How about this? Any and all reports, including phone dumps from any phone of any device that was believed to possibly be a phone of either victim. That means other phones of these victims. We know there were several devices of these victims. Where are their other devices? And who's labeled here as geofence victim? Or how about this? Look at P down at the bottom. P, all interviews, reports, documents, memorialization of interviews, or anyone whose phone was found through geofencing in or around the crime scene. At a time when law enforcement is claiming that these murders took place on the afternoon of February 13th. Hey, that means any phones. Why is defense begging for this in March of 2024? Are you hearing me out there? I don't think you hear me. I don't think you hear me. General facts. Between September 8th and October 6th of 2023, 9 months after it was due, 9 months, that's enough time to gestate an entire human being. The state of Indiana sent the defense 14 hard drives, 5 flash drives, 3 DVDs, and several emails containing discovery disclosures, amounting to almost 4 terabytes of information. That is all of discovery. Hello. Before the defense had a chance to review all of this discovery, remember this, the prosecutor requested the defense be disqualified or kicked off. They cornered the defense under the threat of embarrassment and public shaming and ruining of careers. Tried to remove the defense. However, Supreme Court said, shove that up your ass, Judge Gull. And so attorneys Rozzi and Baldwin were reinstated. Okay. And they re-entered their appearances on January 19th, 2024. But check this one out. However, when they returned in January of 2024, the discovery was given back to them. And guess what? This time, it was weird. It didn't appear this time that the hard drives were organized the same as when they originally were provided. Meaning, there had been considerable changes to the discovery when they were reinstated in January of 2024. And then what happened? Let's talk about this. Then what happened? Then your prosecutor tried to have them found in criminal contempt and arrested and jailed. And that is what the March 18th contempt hearing was about. Yes, this prosecutor and judge tried to have the attorneys a second time removed from this case. And what they did this time, they tried to have them arrested and jailed with accusations of criminal contempt. And the only thing that saved them this time from that sham railroading criminal enterprise action was that the judge's assistant, and that means Jody Williams, had been inappropriately communicating and giving information to YouTubers. And that means Fake Solves and Murder Sheep, most likely. At that contempt hearing, Julie Melvin and Skip Jansen got their ass up on the stand and provided irrefutable evidence of the collusion between Fig Solves and Jody Williams, the employee of the judge, which means the judge was basically giving information to Fig Solves and probably the murder sheet. This information was so damning and so embarrassing that the minute the judge caught wind of it, she knew she could not find these attorneys in criminal contempt. She actually threw a fit about it. If you go back in time and read that order where she did not find them in contempt, she threw a hissy fit the first 2/3 of that order. She called them negligent and all sorts of things. Throwing a hissy fit because Skip Jansen ruined it for her, because he had text messages between Jody Williams and or between himself and Fig Solves that proves that Jody Williams saw all discovery, thought Richard Allen was guilty of sin, wanted him in Westville because that's where he belongs, and was the source that was leaking out to the troll farm. And in addition, the defense received discovery that was intentionally disheveled or disorganized, okay? As the defense went through this discovery, it was intentionally mislabeled. It was intentionally disorganized. My friends who are familiar with the situation tell me that the metaphor is it was as if the discovery were confetti that was thrown up into the air and are allowed to land all over. That's how it was spread among the 14 fucking hard drives. It was a monumental task to even be able to find anything among that discovery. And this is what this is detailing. Most of the items found on the hard drives detailed above are not labeled in any descriptive fashion, and many, if not most of the items, have zero context as to what the significance are. Many of the items are not accompanied by a report or even notes that explain the reason such items are included. For example, one video shows a man that appears to be dead on a bed turned over by what appear to be police, and we believe that's Blaine Nelson. Let's take a little pause here. We believe that to be the body of Blaine Nelson. What is the body of Blaine Nelson doing in the discovery for the Delphi murders? There's no context provided as to why that video is included in the massive amount of discovery or what this video has to do with the murders of Liberty German and Abigail Williams. That's just one example of thousands of examples of that the defense could cite as evidence of no context as to why it's related to the case, and the state of Indiana has provided to the defense. Okay. More recent evidence that the state turned over contains evidence seemingly sandwiched in the middle of completely unrelated discovery. For example, blah, 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 blah. You know, most of the contents of these documents are reports from Westville. Buried among these reports is a narrative on page 239 by Detective Vito describing a phone call with the Detective Liddell of the Manatee County, Florida Sheriff's Office, detailing an investigation of a third-party suspect, Anthony Greeno, known by Unified Command in this matter. Detective Liddell told Detective Vito that the Manatee County Sheriff's Office sent a tech to obtain a pair of a suspect's jeans that appeared to have blood on them, and the Manatee County Sheriffs would send the items to Lafayette to the Indiana State Police Post. Additionally, Detective Liddell sent Detective Vito with an email with their report and a statement and an affidavit. Detective Vito noted that both documents were attached to the report. Neither the Manatee County, Florida report nor the statement affidavit were attached to the document by the state of Indiana provided to the defense. The defense has not located any follow-up discovery detailing whether the state of Indiana even attempted to test the blood on these pants for DNA and does not know if such a report exists. And if it does, whether it may be found sandwiched between other discovery. This is just another example of the discovery issues plaguing the defense. This document would not have been found but for someone taking the time to go through this discovery one page at a time. Furthermore, the state of Indiana has sent piecemeal discovery, forcing the defense to engage in a time-consuming process of reviewing and attempting to search multiple hard drives, flash drives, blah, 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 blah. Okay, you see what I mean? Now, we're going to skip ahead because there's a lot more that we don't need to really talk about. But it's all in here, and you should seek this document out. It goes thoroughly through all of the shenanigans with all of the forensic data from the cell phone of the victim, all of the fuckery with the analysis from law enforcement. It goes through all of the fuckery with Todd Click. Okay, they scrambled the hell out of the Todd Click shit. Any information from Todd Click, they tried to hide it, obfuscate it, gaslight, destroy. You understand that? And on top of that, they took Todd Click and tried to have Todd Click arrested. Remember, after this hearing for this very motion to compel, after the hearing for the contempt where Mr. Todd Click revealed a bunch of this information, they tried to have him arrested by this April 18th was this hearing. By the first week of April, March 18th was this hearing. By the first week of April, they tried to have Mr. Todd Click put in jail. And guess what? They did arrest Todd Click for petty paperwork problems, and appears to be some sort of setup. That's all still going down, but they have arrested Todd Click and charged him. There's a whole bunch of shit with Todd Click that needs to be followed up on. But for any of you considering RICO, you need to understand Todd Click there has been retaliation upon Todd Click. Okay. Now, in addition, let's look at number 30 here. Richard Allen has been trapped in solitary confinement at Westville and at Wabash for 16 plus months. Listen to this. As a basis for understanding the impact of solitary confinement for even 2 weeks on a human being, let alone 16 plus months, the defense cites the United Nations findings on that topic. The United Nations standard minimum rules for the treatment of prisoners, that's prisoners, Rules 43 and 44, prohibits the imposition of solitary confinement for prolonged periods, defined as periods of 15 days or longer. Additionally, per the UN standards, solitary confinement should be prohibited in the case of prisoners with physical or mental disabilities when their conditions would be exacerbated by such measures. I think we need to hear that again. Let's show it to you this way. Let's see. We're going to remove that. Understand what I'm going to say to you now. As a basis for understanding the impact of solitary confinement for even 2 weeks on a human being, let alone 16 plus months, the defense cites the United Nations findings on that topic. The United Nations standard minimum rules for the treatment of prisoners prohibits the imposition of solitary confinement for prolonged periods, which are defined as periods of 15 days or longer. Additionally, per the UN standards, solitary confinement should not be used with prisoners, or should be prohibited in the case of prisoners with physical or mental disabilities, when their conditions would be exacerbated by such measures. And hey, we know for certain that Richard Allen was diagnosed with a mental disability, which was major depressive disorder. And his condition was indeed exacerbated by these periods of longer than 15 days of solitary confinement. 16 plus months. And as I say, he did enter a period of mental and physical deterioration, actually almost died. And he was coerced into confessing. Remember, even according to the psychotic Dr. Walla, he did encounter a severe psychotic break. All of that's been documented. It's well known. Okay. Now, let's see. It's time to put that away. And we're going to go into this. Remember, the defense was asking for information about this. This should be cause for a RICO in and of itself. When you understand the importance of this photo and the others I'm going to show you, this alone should be enough for a federal review of this entire case. Because if this is faked, if this is not authentic, if this is not what the witnesses and family says it is or said it was, this is your primary indicator that this entire crime is something else. That's how important this is. You see, firstly, we've had several experts tell us in the civilian world out here that this is photoshopped. Which means it's not what you say it is. Secondly, we know it doesn't come from the victim's phone or Snapchat, which is another layer of it's not what you say it is. But you have friends and relatives of the victims saying that they found this on Snapchat and that it's real. So who's lying? Is it the creator of it, the sender of it, or the receiver of it, or all of the above? Now, there are these. I'm going to show you a series of 3 photographs. 1, 2, 3. Again. 1, 2, 3. Now you tell me, where do those photos come from? Something smells. Something smells off. Something not making sense. But see, we're not supposed to ask any questions out here. So you've got this guy, right? You've got Kyle Smith. Kyle Smith. Huh. And Erica Gibson. So you've had a PCA that starts the ball rolling. That is misrepresenting the entire truth of the scenario. like I said, there's facets to this, right? So let's go from the top down. You've got the judge. This judge has uniformly denied every important motion, uniformly sustained every irrational, unfounded objection by the prosecutor, has failed to hear hearings on all the important issues that have been raised, has basically exhibited an extreme degree of bias, who even at this very time is refusing to release exhibits that were admitted into trial, which are public property. Yes, for instance, exhibits that are not under seal, like the recording that this victim allegedly took on the cell phone. Where's that video? Where's that audio? Where are the enhanced versions that law enforcement made? Where are all the exhibits from trial? Now we are months out from sentencing. Then we have the prosecutor. This prosecutor knowingly misrepresented the entire narrative of the case. In collusion with the judge, ensured the omitting of all sorts of exculpatory evidence and third-party suspects. People who literally placed themselves in the crime, like Keegan Kline and Ron Logan, among others. The entire Odinist report from Todd Click, all those individuals, the Vinlanders and all of those guys, she omitted all of them. The prosecutor is the one who asked that all that be omitted. The geofencing evidence, the sketches, those very odd, questionable sketches that there's never been a straight story about. He allowed witnesses to lie on the stand knowingly. For instance, Derek German took the stand and said that he picked those girls up the day before, when for all these years, for 7 years, it was Anna Williams who did that. He allowed Sarah Carbaugh to get on there and say muddy and bloody when she had only said muddy, and magically just changed to bloody. He allowed Brad Weber to get up there and present to the jury a false timeline as to when he drove up his driveway. He allowed Brian Harshman to willy-nilly give his opinion that the voice sounds like Richard Allen. He purposefully omitted the existence of a guy named Daniel Pearson, who was there at the very important time. There were other female witnesses he omitted. There are things that I can't even remember to say right now, because as I'm remembering things, I can't even keep track of I've already lost one of the thoughts. We may get back to him. But like I said, then you have the sheriffs. Tobe Lesenby, Tony Liggett. Misrepresenting witness statements, hiding evidence, possibly destroying evidence. What happened to all the DNA? What happened to all the 70 days of shit? What happened to the exculpatory evidence? What happened to all the tips? All the tips that came in that talk about other people that are substantiated, that have been ignored, and leads that have not been followed? There's so much. There's so much. So much has been destroyed. But I can't even remember. Okay, I can't even remember. But you got that. And then you got, now we come down to the witnesses. You've got witnesses. Now hear me out here. A large number of these witnesses are related to the family, much like the prosecutor is related to the family. The prosecutor himself has a conflict of interest by being married in to the family. The prosecutor is related in by marriage to the German family. You have witnesses. Some of these very witnesses are related to the family. Kathy Shank, who found this magical tip, just magically found a tip in a drawer, is connected directly to one of the perpetrator, third-party suspects who was not allowed in, and that's Ron Logan. Does anyone see a conflict of interest with just about everybody here? And then you got the family. I knew you guys were waiting for it. You've got the family. So you've got witnesses who's changed their stories over and over and over. Okay? You've got the family. You've got the family who've changed their stories and the details of their alibis, et cetera, over and over and over and over and over again, which causes the public to say they're lying. You've got the family who went out onto social media for years and spun this fairy tale. Over and over and over and over, telling the story over and over and over and over. And then they got a PR agent named Gray Hughes. Do anyone actually believe that's his fucking name? Come on, man. Let me see if I can find the name of that endeavor. Yeah, it's called Global Strategies Group. Okay, watch this. See if I can read this to you. You guys want to know about Global Strategies Group? Let's read it. Sorry, it's taking me a minute. I wasn't prepared for this one. Gray Hughes, coming from Global Strategies Group. Global Strategies Group is a leader provider of defense and national security technology, software, and systems. Operating at the nexus of government and business, they address the key national security challenges of the 21st century posed by hostile states, terrorist and criminal networks, and the new threats of the information age. They invest in capabilities that help ensure the security of the information domain, the effectiveness of defense and intelligence operations, and the resilience of critical national infrastructure. Global Strategies Group has been an investor and operator in defense and national security since 1998. Across all of their investments, they imply their deep understanding of the sector of managing business growth and change and of the financial market gained over many years of running a worldwide enterprise at the forefront of national security. They achieve significant returns by identifying and investing in dynamic businesses that seek to develop and grow where their sector experience can add significant value. By using both public and private market capital structures to take key positions, Global Strategies Group is perfectly positioned to best support all of its stakeholders. Okay. Operational capability. International companies and governments are increasingly working together to identify and address complex security threats, many of which demand highly sophisticated solutions. Global Strategies Group has worked at the nexus of government and business over 2 decades, developing a deep understanding of current and emerging threats to national security and how they can most effectively be tackled. They deploy financial and intellectual capital to design, integration, and application of specialist technology, software, and systems. Through this, they help to secure information domain, support defense, intelligence, and law enforcement operations, and ensure the resilience of critical infrastructure. Okay? Now, let me ask you this. Why is that where Gray Hughes is coming from? And the family, for years, together with Gray Hughes, built this narrative that Nick McClellan, the prosecutor here, took and turned into the actual crime that really happened, that Richard Allen is the main actor in. You understand? In other words, Gray Hughes invented a narrative that the family ran with, and then, since it was foolproof, law enforcement ran with and turned into what happened as the crime. Where there's absolutely no proof that ever happened as a crime. It's something Gray Hughes came up with from Global Strategies Group. And since the trial has ended, sentencing has occurred, every key player, except for one, from the state side, has come out and started the PR fucking blitz. Since sentencing, it's been a PR blitz. Jerry Holman, multiple. Nick McClellan, multiple. Brian Harshman, David Vito, Pat Cicero, Mike Patty, Becky Patty. Let me ask you this. Why are they working so hard right now to try to convince the world that the right thing was done and that this case is over? Let me ask you that. Remember, when the defense team came out and started talking, and Andrew Baldwin made it very clear that the only reason he chose to come out and talk, and they chose to come out and talk, is because they were not going to let this be one-sided with the conversation, because Jerry Holman came out and started slandering and lying, and so did the others. So they had no choice but to come out and at least correct the record publicly. So I ask you, why the PR push now that this is over? And guess what? It's not just the main actors, it's all of the outlets. Okay, it's all of the outlets. Remember, there's several social media outlets and media outlets. There's really no difference these days that are specific outlets for the family in the state of Indiana. Their pulpits or their mouthpieces. So why are all these outlets pushing this narrative? And now you've even seen NBC do it. There's a uniform front standing shoulder to shoulder trying to push this out to the world as the truth and justice and about what actually happened, blah, 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 blah. Why, if the guy who did it is in jail, he's gone, he's done, why do you have to do that? I think it's fear. I think it's fear. Honestly, I think it's fear. Thank you very much, Rebecca Ann. Hey, Rebecca Ann 1965, $9.99 super chat. Thank you, Prof. You've been hitting it out of the park. I'm just giving you the best I can. I've said that to everyone, but thank you so much. I'm doing the best that I can, is what I'm doing. And I appreciate you. Thank you so much. No, but why? It's got to be fear. Because if your guy's in jail, you're satisfied that justice is done, why do you need to work so hard? Imagine the effort. This is what I'm getting at. There's an effort going into this right now. Remember that NBC thing? They were filming 2 weeks ago. Like, this has been an ongoing effort. This is none of this is just off the cuff. This is strategy. Remember, even the juror coming out, okay? Even the juror coming out. Where did she go to? Question for you smart people out there. Where did that juror go to? But here's what I know, like I said in my last show. What I've said in my last show is that it's a futile effort. Why? Well, I'll tell you why. Because at every level, no one's buying it. No one's buying it at every level. Let me tell you how I see. Because when you do these things and they're published, there's always or usually there's public commentary. So I've been paying attention to the public commentary. And here's what you see. It's a bloodbath. It's a bloodbath. This public commentary, it's an easy 68 to 75%. Okay. A majority, a strong majority, is not buying it anymore. They're blasting the hell out of you folks. Because everyone can see it. So why can't you? You can't see the writing on the wall? I mean, when they're having to turn off comment sections or having to delete comments or having to zero out comments because it's so bad, the feedback that they're getting back from the public. I mean, you're fighting overwhelming odds now. And do you think it's going to get any better as more comes out? Listen, it's inevitable that these exhibits get released. When that original video off that victim's phone, when that original video, okay, the bridge guy video, when that original video, and audio get released, I mean, that honestly, that's going to be the tipping point. That's it. It's over. It's over because people are going to see what exists versus what you portrayed for 7 years. Look, it's over. The narrative's over. No one's ever going to buy it. It's a done deal. There's legal processes that have to play out. Yes, but listen, when it comes to people can see for themselves that this is blatantly clear corruption. It appears that there's a criminal enterprise at play. It really does. From every level. Remember how I said what it looks like from these cases that are being brought by the feds right now is that it's multifaceted. They're hitting the human trafficking, the drug trafficking, the street crime, the corporate crime, the law enforcement crime. You know what it looks like? It looks like DELPHI in particular is all of that. Well, you got the law enforcement crime, right? The destroying of evidence, the railroading, the blah 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 blah. You've got the criminal underworld crime, right? That's the perpetrators, the trafficking of the drugs and shit that was going on. You got the sex crimes, because we know there were sex crimes. You got the corporate crime. That's the higher ups. You got the financial crimes. How much of this was money laundering? How much of this has been money laundering? I'm saying you needed all of this to try to pull this one over. Okay, you needed an entire PR campaign for 7 years. You needed hired actors. You needed friendly PR outlets. You needed a whole troll farm doing your dirty work on social media. Death threats, doxing, defamation, intimidation, witness harassment, witness intimidation, destruction of evidence. There have been so much crime. I even suspect that there have been murders. What's loosely referred to as a Delphi body count. There's been arsons. Any Fed in their right mind not looking at this needs to do a thorough review of themselves. Take a hard look in the mirror. Now, here's what I'd like to say to you out there. Todd Rokita. Okay? Todd Rokita. Todd Rokita is the Attorney General for the state of Indiana. You need to contact. Okay, here's the things I'm going to say. I think that if you are a citizen, state of Indiana, contact your elected official, Todd Rokita, or your Attorney General, Todd Rokita. Express to him your concerns. That's the best I can tell you. So, oh, let's see who's in here. All right, so we got Jim Chrisman. What's up, Jim? Who's your daddy? Miss K. Rebecca Ann, 1965. Jay. Two Ears, One Mouth. Andre, Sweet Dude Shibby, Heather Brown, Pert Innit, Critter Mama. Nancy Drew, 101. Gretchen Allen. Sandra Rowley. Lisa. Big JD. 5 Green Acres. Nancy Drew. Crystal Blue Persuasion. Two Ears, One Mouth. Joseph Borg. Who's Your Daddy 11. Deanna Burdett. Birdie 81. Jay Lynn. Amanda Slayton. Lauren Naran. Okay, Amanda. Oh, I already said hi, Amanda. Okay, good, Amanda. Who else we got in here? Jake Brooks. What's up, Jake Brooks? All right, we got Dieter. We got Noe Amos. Rhonda Holton. Eye of Apophis. Excuse me, Deb. Oh, who else we got in here? Bill. Mar R. And there are many others. I'm not going to go back that far. Leanne 85, Mino Dino. If anyone wants me to say your name, put it in now. But Kayla, hey, Kayla was here. So we got a bunch of people. Sunflower Soul, Swade Smith. Everyone who was here super early. So let me see. Sons of God. We got Gene, Oleg Cat. All right. Yeah, I know, Leanne. Absolutely. They reverse engineer. That's what's called a railroading. They railroaded a guy. Now, look, I've always said openly, whether he has some involvement or not, I cannot say. I do not know. But what I can say is they absolutely railroaded a guy. They violated every constitutional right he has. They damn near killed him, and he's falsely convicted. So this whole thing needs to be looked at. I mean, this is a tragedy. And the thing is, they've tried to make this go away with Richard Allen. They have tried to say Richard Allen makes this all go away. And that's what I said. It's a futile effort. This will never go away. This will never go. Richard Allen is not what's going to make this go away. Too bad it's not. If you wanted that, you should have proved it to the world. You didn't. You didn't prove that Richard Allen is going to make everything go away. So it ain't going away. It ain't going away. Okay. Richard Allen is not going to make Delphi murders go away. Rambo Bambo. All right. Who else we got here? I don't know what you're saying in the chat. Kayla, Joseph Borg. If everything was legit, then when the verdict was read and they would have been content, justice was served and went on with life. Why the continued defense? You won, didn't you? Why are you afraid of scrutiny? Yeah. No, if everything was legit, the entire world would have celebrated the conviction of Richard Allen. Yay. The only ones who celebrated were family and Troll Farm. Don't you find that odd? Family and Troll Farm. That's all. The only ones who celebrated the conviction of Richard Allen. All right, what's up, Chevy Killer 306? Chevy Killer Kaleida Hope is here. All right, what's up? You've been lurking. What's up, lurkers? Come on, say good night, lurkers. We're getting out of here. All right. Who else we got in here? Oh, you want to know about that blue jacket? I'll give you something secret. I'll give you a secret. You want to know something about the blue jacket? I'll give you one secret. The blue jacket taken from Rick Allen's home by police could not have been worn by Bridge Guy or by Rick at all in 2017. Do you know why? Because the blue jacket law enforcement confiscated from his home was purchased by Kathy Allen 3 years after the murder. Which was 2020. Kathy Allen purchased the jacket in 2020, which eliminates that jacket as at all being what Rick was wearing that day or being Bridge Guy's jacket. They tried to hide that fact by not allowing the defense to see the details of the jacket in all the labeling and all of that stuff, the tags, which have the specific lot number and all that stuff showing you the date it was manufactured. So the tag with the model number and style number tells you the manufacture date. And anyway, it's just another way that they misled. You see, it's another way they've misled the public. And that's not speculation. That's a fact. Okay, what's up, Marie? What's up, Marie? All right, what's up, Francie Fran? Oh, bad name choice. Snarky ass Angel is here. Okay, so Joseph Borg. Who else is here? Yes, Andre, it's confirmed. It's confirmed. All right. So, you guys, I love you all. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. That's my show for today. I appreciate it, you all being here. For all of you on the replay crew, please understand that we have these support links if you'd like to support the channel. Totally at your discretion. But we got the Cash App, the Buy Me a Coffee. I have a GoFundMe. I have the super chats and the super thanks and all those ways, and especially hitting the thumbs up and watching the content. All of that stuff we got for you. If you'd like to support the channel in any way, and also just leaving a comment down below in the comment section does help the channel as well. I appreciate it. I always get so much help at this channel, and this has just been the greatest blessing in the way that the community supports me as I try to work and support the community. So it's just been a wonderful, mutually beneficial relationship. And I love you in the channel or in the chat and in the comments. Welcome, Help Me, Rhonda. All right. And Jean, some of you people coming in chat I haven't seen yet. But RICO. Yeah. So thanks, Jake Brooks. Is that Jake Brooks? RICO is an understatement. Yeah. Thank you. The Tonight Show was called Delphi, the demand for a RICO. And I really meant that title. So listen, let me say this. Demand. Okay, demand. Demand. In other words, your voice needs to be heard. I demand a RICO for the Delphi murders. Okay? You need to demand a RICO for the Delphi murders. Everybody needs to be demanding a federal investigation into what has gone on here, because this has implications for all of us. Okay, we are all under the federal umbrella, and if they won't go and take a look at this for all the outward appearance and all of the evidence, at least reasonable cause for suspicion, if they won't do it in this case, do you think they'd ever do it for a case in which you were wrongfully convicted or railroaded, or there was some racketeering organization that put you in the crosshairs? I don't think so. So please let your voice be heard. Demand a RICO, and hopefully our voices will be heard by the people who it's important that hear them. And yeah, I think it's I think the consensus out there is making a noise, and I think that noise is going to continue to build, and it will be heard. I think that noise will be heard by those who need to hear it. But let's just pray for each other, pray for that, pray for yourselves, and like I always say, hug your kids, hug your wife, and boy, enjoy your lives, okay, and those you love, because that's really what life is all about. And so with that being said, I'm going to get out of here too, and I'm going to get back to doing what I have to do. And I did enjoy this time together, though. I always do. And I told my brother on the phone yesterday that it's funny because many of you are strangers from the internet, but it's funny how over time, strangers from the internet can become your friends. It's odd, but it's a time we live in. This is our primary means of communication, and it's pretty odd. And I've been reluctant to get to it. I should have engaged upon this 10 or 15, 20 years ago when it was developing, but I'm a late comer to the internet, but I'm here now. So I was resistant until I couldn't anymore. So God bless you. And good night to everyone. So thanks. All right. Good night, Mar. Good night, Sweet Dude Shibby, Maria Alma, Oleg Cat. I see y'all. What's up, Digital? Thanks for lurking. All right. And Hebby Brown. And Ninja Warrior Assassin and Hebby Brown. Special prayers to them, too. Special prayers for them, too. Ninja Warrior Assassin and Heather Brown. They need your prayers, okay? And pray for Chevy Killer, too. Look, he's there. Me and Noe, hey, everybody, pray for us. And we'll be talking some more very soon. Telling you some more truth. Okay, we're out of here. God bless.
you.